I think it's really important that people pay attention to this. I mean, we don't want people panicking. We don't want people, feeling, we've had issues with people thinking they don't want to be near their Asian neighbors and stuff like that. That's like really not necessary, and it's really not the source of the problem, and it's got a national dimension now. It's a disease, and once it's out there, and
everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 Montgomery County Council meeting. We're going to begin this morning with three presentations. The first one is a proclamation recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month by me, and I'm very pleased to be joined by County Executive Mark Elrich and the chair of the Domestic Violence Coordinating Commission, Debbie Feinstein, and who we're going to hear from in a few minutes. And with that, we're going to ask the county executive to please lead off with some words.
So thank you very much, and I'm really happy to be part of this morning. We know that COVID-19 has not slowed this down. This is one thing that the virus has not managed to stop in our lives. And domestic violence continues to increase. And, one of the problems is with, normally when people go to work and they're in contact with other people can see what's happening, or you might say something to a partner or to a coworker, or to a friend that you encounter. There are multiple ways that people might be able to get support and get help, but when everybody is in the same house all the time together, the risks are greater and the ability of a person to reach out for help is lesser. So, we understand what's happening. And we're here and continue to be here to help people who need help. Domestic violence doesn't just affect the victim and the direct victim, but in a family, the children are victims, whether they are the victims of violence itself or they're the observers of violence. It is emotionally wrenching. It's inexplicable to children. They don't understand this behavior, and it sets just horrible models and expectations for young people. You grow up and you think you're in a normal world, and then these things, happen, and is this normal? Is this what life's about? And that is a lifetime, long-term damaging effect that domestic violence has on everybody in the family. So this is really important to us. That's why we're here to help. We're doing this proclamation today. The Family Justice Center, a remarkable creation. My former colleague Dutchie Trachtenberg played a big role in that. This is probably one of the most important things we do, and I just want to let you know that I continue to support it. We'll do what we can to make sure that this is one of those things that does not get dinged. If we have to do, if there are budget hardships, this is not a place to visit another hardship on people. So we want to make sure that this endures whatever comes down the road, that this is one of the signature things that we keep doing. So thank you, Debbie, for your work. It's been, truly important for us to have somebody in the county government who's taken this on, and your leadership and the leadership of everybody else there in the center has just been absolutely critical. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We're going to hear from Debbie in a couple seconds. She's the chair now. I'm the former chair of Domestic Violence Coordinating Committee, and I'm still on the board. And I do know that as the county executives mentioned, the good work that they do. Also want to mention the Montgomery County Family Justice Center Foundation is holding its first virtual 11K through the month of October. And it's obviously October 2020 is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I want to publicly thank, and we had mentioned this right before the Zoom began, but I want to personally thank and publicly thank the amazing Catherine Albornoz, who's the chair of the event this year, and what a wonderful job she's done. And she's getting applause from a person, somebody she might know. I mean, from a fellow by the name of Gabe, who we also know. But I also want to mention that She is truly taking this event to an unbelievable moment. The number 11 is significant because this year marks the 11th year that the Montgomery County, the MCF-JCF, has supported victims of domestic violence and their children. Participants in the event can walk, run, or stroll 11K, which is a little over 6.5 miles, anytime, any place during the month of October. I actually have completed my 11K, but my wife Sally is on the planning committee as well. And she told me, even though I've completed my 11K, which I thought was pretty significant for me, that doesn't mean that we stop at 11K. So wasn't the best news for me, but I'm going to continue to walk if the weather is good. Registration runs through October 30th, and the participation supports victims of domestic violence by providing pro bono legal aid, emergency transportation, specialized counseling services, financial literacy training, emergency care kits, diapers and formula, and the list goes on. And with that, I'm going to ask Debbie to please say a few words, and also if she could please introduce the people who have joined us as well. Please. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Councilmember President Katz and County Executive Elrich. So as Councilmember Katz said, my name is Debbie Feinstein. I am the current chair of the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, and my primary job is I'm chief of the Special Victims Division for the Montgomery County State's Attorney's Office. The Domestic Violence Coordinating Council is a collaborative of many different organizations in the county, as well as public members, and it includes Health and Human Services, the Family Justice Center, the Commission for Women, and many other organizations that I'm privileged to have the opportunity right now to chair the council and to work towards preventing domestic violence in our community and educating our community about it. I'm honored today to be joined by the Acting Director of Trauma Services for Health and Human Services, Dornay Hill. She's also the director of our crisis center in Montgomery County and has really been on the front lines of receiving domestic violence victims as they come into the crisis center, as well as many others who are in crisis in our community. And I'm also joined by Tom Mannion, who is the director of the Family Justice Center and the vice chair of the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, who also has been on the front lines as the Family Justice Center and the Crisis Center have remained open throughout the COVID-19 pandemic to receive victims of domestic violence, to support victims of domestic violence and their families and their children. As County Executive Elrich mentioned, children who are exposed to domestic violence, it is a very difficult childhood experience for a child to go through, and there are specific services available for children through the Family Justice Center and Safe Start. So if you or a family member or a neighbor or someone that you're concerned about is being impacted in any way by domestic violence, please reach out. Please reach out to the Family Justice Center. Please reach out to the Crisis Center and get help. You are not alone. And I'm so thrilled today that the council and the county executive are recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's an important time in the year, but domestic violence obviously is not limited to October. Domestic violence awareness is not limited to October. We were privileged earlier this year to receive incredible support from the county executive's office and the police department to launch our family violence prevention campaign. And that's with the support of so many others and the support of the council in pushing that forward and making sure that our community knows that services are open and available. So please reach out. If you are a victim of domestic violence, you are not alone. And thank you again for this recognition and for all of the work that the council and the county executive's office does year round to safeguard victims of domestic violence and to educate our community on this important issue. So thank you again.
Thank you. And we certainly want to mention and thank the State's Attorney John McCarthy and the Sheriff Darren Popkin for all of their hard work. Their offices truly work with us every day, so we thank them as well. And with that, Mr. County Executive, I think we have a proclamation to read.
I believe so.
I believe so. And would you like to start off, and then we'll go back and forth on it? How's
Sure.
that sound?
Sounds good to me. Whereas on average, 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. In 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. And
Whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been the victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime, 1 in 3 adolescents is a victim of physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal abuse from a dating partner, and 1 in 15 children are exposed to domestic violence each year. And
whereas October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the Montgomery County Family Justice Center, located in Rockville, Maryland, offers free confidential services to women, men, and children impacted by domestic violence. And
information about the Family Justice Center is available online, in courthouses, on ride-on buses, and in their community centers across Montgomery County through easily understood messages such as, "Are you afraid of your partner?" Free help is available. This essential information is published in 16 different languages to reach community members from diverse backgrounds. And
whereas the Montgomery County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council offers education and resources for community members, including Choose Respect Montgomery, which is a teen dating violence prevention initiative, and together we can reduce the incidence of domestic violence through public awareness.
now, therefore, it be resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby proclaims the month of October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Montgomery County. We ask our community to recognize the pervasive problems of domestic violence, to support our friends and families in the process of seeking services, and to spread the word about the help available at the Family Justice Center. And it is signed by the County Executive, Mark Elrich, and me, Sidney Katz, as the President of the County Council. Thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this.
And thank you again. And I just want to mention, I think that some language may have been inadvertently omitted from the proclamation about the Crisis Center and the Abused Persons Program. I just want to mention our partners at the Crisis Center and Abused Persons Program as vital resources in our county that provide services to victims of domestic violence. And again, the fact that all of these services are open during COVID-19. And thank you again for the recognition.
Thank you. And Debbie, if you'll let us know, we can actually change this. I know that county executive has an extra signature with him, so we can actually change this proclamation to include what is necessary to include.
No
Thank
problem.
you very
So much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You the same.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. The next item that we have, the next presentation that we have, is a proclamation recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and Councilmember Albornoz will be doing.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And joining me in issuing this proclamation are my colleagues on the HHS committee, Council members Craig Rice and Evan Glass, who have been working tirelessly on this and so many other issues. And I enjoy having the opportunity to serve with both of them. So as you noted, Mr. Council President, this marks National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is appropriate because this also marks the 30th anniversary of our Americans with Disabilities Act. And as we know, our disability community contributes to our economy. They contribute in so many different ways to our community, and we so appreciate all of those contributions. We also appreciate the businesses who are partners with our community and employ these wonderful able-bodied residents in a variety of ways. And I also want to acknowledge the incredible community-based organizations that have established long-standing programs that are truly critical to our so many residents here in Montgomery County. So it's absolutely appropriate that we acknowledge this particular month, but also, especially during the pandemic, which has disproportionately impacted so many of our residents. And in the employment space, many people with disabilities have been disproportionately impacted. So we must remain diligent to ensure that we move our community forward. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Craig Rice, to say a few words of introduction, followed by Councilmember Glass, and then I will introduce the folks who are joining us for this presentation. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Albornoz, and thank you to all the folks who continue to work tirelessly to make sure that people with differing abilities are included in our community as a whole, and especially in our workplace. And I'd be remiss, and you'll have to bear with me, tonight is Dying to Defeat ALS, a great event in which we're raising money to raise awareness, as well as to try and find a cure for ALS. And many of you know that Stephen Goldstein, who was my chief of staff, battled ALS up until his last day working in our office. And I really have to say that how much that meant to him, how much that meant to his family, how much inclusion matters, how much of a difference it makes, and a shining example of how we can be inclusive and supportive of those who have challenges, but who still want to work, who still want to make a difference in their communities. We have that ability, and that's the great thing about this. It's making sure that folks understand that regardless of the challenges that they may face, that they still have something to offer, all of us. We all learned so much from him. We all learned so much from the accommodations that he needed to make and how we needed to make our office better to accommodate that. And so I'm so proud of this council, so proud of this county, so proud of the great work that continues to go on each and every day to make sure that regardless of the abilities you have, that you are included, that you are welcomed, and that businesses and companies understand the value that people with differing abilities have and can contribute to their overall operations. And so I really want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to be a part of this. I really want to thank again all of the advocates in the community who fight for these individuals each and every day to ensure that they have a solid place here. So thank you.
Councilmember, that was well said and heartfelt. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Chair Albornoz, for leading this proclamation, and thank you, Councilmember Rice, for bringing Steve's memory into this space. It is a beautiful reminder of how this work has personally affected the council family. And so I know it's only been a year or so, but thank you for invoking Steve's memory into this conversation. And, you know, we're talking about the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act and the nation's 75th anniversary of the observance of the National Employment Disability Awareness Month. And here in Montgomery County, we are continuing to promote and support workers, job seekers, and retirees of all stripes. And that means making sure that we support fair and equitable workplaces, that we improve working conditions for everybody, and advance opportunities of employment for all. And so this proclamation is just yet another reminder of the commitment that we have here in Montgomery County to people with disabilities and to increase access and opportunities for all residents of Montgomery County. So thank you, Council. Thank you, HHS Chair Albornoz, for leading this.
Thank you both. That was well done, Councilmember Glass. Joining us in the audience are Dr. Seth Morgan, the chairman of the Commission for People with Disabilities here in Montgomery County. Dr. Morgan has had a tough year. He's been battling cancer, and he has been doing it with humility, grace, and strength. And we so appreciate you, Dr. Morgan, and all that you have done for our community over the years. Also joining us in the audience are Odile Burnetto, the Chief of the Department of Health and Human Services, Aging and Disability Services, and my Leadership Montgomery classmate, Pat Ritter, the Executive Director of the Treatment and Learning Centers. And also in the audience is Karen Hochburn, the OHR, the Director of Project Search. Actually, Pat, if we could turn it over to you to say a few comments on behalf of the community, and then my colleagues and I will read this proclamation. Oh, and looks I think you are muted.
I unmuted myself. I'm sorry, I had to. Thank you on behalf of the Montgomery County Interact community providers and all individuals with disabilities today for this recognition. Hiring an individual with disability provides diversity in the workplace, and that strengthens businesses. And it also provides good employees. And we appreciate this today. We certainly are happy to be recognized and know that this is something that is important. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat, and that was well said. So now my colleagues and I will read the proclamation. Just want to confirm that you both have it teed up. Great. So I will read the first paragraph and then we will go from there. So, proclamation of the Montgomery County Council. Whereas this marks the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the nation's 75th observance of National Employment Disability Awareness Month. And whereas, Councilmember Rice?
Whereas we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring equal employment for all residents, including increasing employment access and opportunity for workers with disabilities to live and thrive in our community. And
whereas the disability community often faces obstacles to secure and retain gainful employment, and the pandemic has disproportionately impacted job losses for those with disabilities, with 1 in 5 having lost their jobs and nearly 1 million jobs terminated for countless disabled workers. And
whereas while the current public health crisis progresses, innovative and collaborative strategies are critical to advance more inclusive employment policies and adopt improved benefits to best support our residents with special needs. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Montgomery County Council of Maryland hereby recognizes the accomplishments in the workplace of all individuals with disabilities and commemorates National Employment Disability Awareness Month. And be it further resolved that the County Council celebrates the dedication, achievements, and determination of our disability community, who strengthen and steer our national, state, and local workforce toward success. Presented on this 20th day of October in the year 2020, signed by myself and Council President Katz. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're now going to go to a video presentation. I think it's more than just a video presentation for Councilmember for a Day by Councilmember Rice. And Councilmember Rice, if you will please take it away. I'm actually going to be off of the video. I'm going to stop my video so that others can see theirs. Thank you.
well, thank you very much, Councilmember Katz. And, this is something that has been something we've been involved in for a few years now, which is to ensure that our students have a voice when it comes to caring about things in their community, and that we recognize that voice and recognize the importance of it by lifting it up to be a part of our Montgomery County Council for a Day. Something in which my office, in conjunction with council staff, did a great job of coming up with the Councilmember for a Day program. And we've seen such great young individuals who have shown a light in terms of the voices that need to be heard in our community. And as we look at the racial unrest that we have here in this country right now, and the young voices that are a part of that discussion, the sea of change that we see happening from young people realizing the part that they play in terms of changing the world, it really is exciting to be able to highlight this. And I really want to thank every single one of my council colleagues for their great support of this program. Each and every year, we see that our students get stronger and stronger and their voices are louder and louder. And we see the great things that they are accomplishing once they've gone beyond Councilmember for a Day. And really, our day is a spotlight on the great things that they're able to do and accomplish, the great things that they are doing in their community each and every day because they care. And I think that it's a great time for us to really look at re-envisioning the Councilmember for a Day. So I'm putting that teaser out there. There's some very exciting things that are going to be happening in the future with the Councilmember for a Day program, and I couldn't be more proud. But our commitment to making sure that the voices of our youth are heard, that they're lifted up, that people realize what it means to be a leader and how they can do this and how it's attainable really matters a lot. I will just say one little plug for my young men out there. I've had multiple council members for a day now and still haven't had a young man. So I'm putting a challenge out there this year. Fellas, we need to step it up. And I'm very excited, but it should become as no surprise that women are certainly leading the way. I'm led at my house by my women. So I certainly understand how that goes. So with that, Mr. Katz, or President Katz, I think that we have, I'm not sure if Ms. Avanla, who is yes, I see her. She was our most recent Councilmember Ferde. She can tell you about all the great things that are going on. It is absolutely amazing and so exciting, but I'll let her tell the story. So let me turn it over to our reigning Councilmember Ferde, Ms. Ajo Avamla.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera, but my camera's having a couple problems. Sorry about that. But I am so honored to see you all again. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in the Councilmember for a Day program. It showed me a lot and it gave me an introduction to public policy. And I'm really grateful for that because it showed me that I'm never too young to use my voice. For my application essay, I had written about the implications of youth vaping, and I was also working with the Gandhi Brigade Youth Media Project at the time to produce a documentary on it. So I guess you could say I was pretty dedicated to the cause, and it struck me as a pressing public policy issue because everywhere I turned, I saw peers becoming lab rats to the substance, and I knew it wasn't right. But I also wasn't alone. That night that I found out I won, Councilmember Rice had shared that there were actually several essays that addressed youth vaping. And the council let it be known that our voices were heard when they passed Bill 3219, restricting vape access for minors. So to say I was a part of that is such a big deal because it goes to show what happens when you speak up. So since then, I've continued to use my voice in a lot of different ways, including, but definitely not limited to, running a startup last year known as Pouchful to raise awareness for climate change through the sale of our eco-friendly lunch bags. We've now liquidated, but we donated 10% of our proceeds to the Environmental Defense Fund. I was on the SMOB Advisory Council where I advocated for the integration of more farm students in higher income schools with the redistricting taking place for the construction of the new Seneca Valley High School. I'm the editor-in-chief of Black Gems magazine, which gives more women of color like myself a platform to raise their voices. And then I raise my voice quite literally when it comes to oratory. I'm the two-time local gold medalist for the NAACP's AXO program, the winner of the local Blacks in Government oratory competition, where I discussed how an inclusive immigration policy would bring unity to the United States, and CBS Baltimore's Black History Oratory Competition. And most recently, I was featured in Refinery 29 and interviewed by Nickelodeon for my views on being a first-time voter. Voting on November 3rd is just one of the many ways I plan to continue using my voice, and I hope to all the future council members that they won't stop here, but continue using their voices as well, because this program helped me realize how powerful mine is, especially when we come together. Thank you.
Ajo, no, thank you. That is incredible. And again, I hope to my colleagues certainly highlights what is there about making sure that this program can, again, lift up leaders in our community. I am so delighted to hear that everything that's happened, and I look forward to seeing what more lies ahead, because I know, Ajo, your future is bright. So with that, Mr. President, we can go ahead and start the video, but I have to honestly say, I think that Ajo probably took the cake, but the video's good.
Thank you. Are the current winners here?
Oh, yes, we'll get them after the video.
Okay.
My name is Arvin Kim, and the most important issue to me is equity. I am a firm believer in equality of opportunity and that everyone, despite their background, identity, or socioeconomic status, should have the chance to make it far. Being a student in such a diverse county, equitable education is something that I strongly support. Disparity is very present, and more equitable systems can be put in place in every aspect of our education. There is no issue more pressing than the deep disparity that is faced today.
Hi, my name is Queen Tamaklo, and I'm a student at Northwest High School. I decided to apply for the Councilmember for a Day contest because I wanted to speak on the issue of ESOL students not being able to partake in any honors or AP classes. In my opinion, no one should be denied a higher education because English does not happen to be their first language. These students can do so much more. They have so much potential, and it's our job to give them a chance to prove to us who they are.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Espirito, and I'm thankful to be selected as finalist for the Council Member for a Day Challenge. I applied to this challenge to discuss about the vulnerable homeless population during COVID-19, propose solutions such as free COVID testing, and full-scale cleanings of shelters to make them safe for trustworthy environments. Thankfully, the Council acted accordingly and helped improve the lives of many. Moving forward, I just ask that they continue to invest in more sanitary supplies such as gloves and masks for these shelters in order to improve the lives further.
Hi, my name is Lauren Campana. I applied to be council member for the day in order to raise awareness about the importance of school diversity and possibly influence students within Montgomery County to be more open-minded towards their peers. Richmond Montgomery High School is filled with so many students of all kinds of races and ethnicities. Being a part of such a diverse school, I've experienced countless amount of benefits that comes with this opportunity. I believe that it is crucial for every student within Montgomery County to be aware of what all a diverse community can offer them.
Hi, my name is Finley Skurlock, and I wrote a paper about the public policy issue of education and how we can reform the system. I am passionate about this issue because from a young age I've never been challenged in school, and I've always also thought that teachers are not paid enough and they work very hard. So I wanted to, as well as I've also been bullied a lot in school, and I wanted to write a paper about that to help our government reform the system and make change happen.
Hi guys, my name is Andrea and I'm currently a senior at James River Lake High School. I never thought I'd be honored to be part of this contest, but thankfully I made it and someone got to hear my voice, and that just means so much to me, being able to talk about the Black community and everything that's been going on, including with Corona. So it's really, it means a lot that someone heard me, and that other people should definitely sign up for this because you never know. So one word can change our whole life.
Hello, my name is Emery Cole and I am the junior at Paint Branch High School. I entered a Council Member for a Day contest to express my knowledge and my concern on the topic of gerrymandering. I feel that gerrymandering can heavily impact the citizenship and voter participation in our elections, which can impact the country as a whole.
Hello, my name is Denise Ramirez Cisneros, and I'm a senior at Northwood High School. I decided to apply for Council Member for a Day Challenge because I felt that it was a great way to advocate for issues I'm passionate about, one of them being immigration reform. As a daughter of immigrant parents, I have felt firsthand the challenges that come with being an immigrant in America, which is why I constantly try and advocate and help run a student-led advocacy group called FAIR, standing for Fans of Asylum and Immigration Reform, in which we try and fight for reform of human detention centers and asylum policy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan Gutierrez, and I'm a senior at Paint Branch High School in Montgomery County, Maryland. The issue I wrote about in the Montgomery County Council Member for a Day Challenge was universal health care. I believe universal health care is a right for humans regardless of socioeconomic status. We live in a country where we have the resources to be able to provide not only health care, but a good, high-quality health care for all, regardless of their membership in a privatized system.
Hi, my name is Samuel Lee, and the reason I entered the Council Member for a Day competition was because I thought this was a good chance to speak out on an issue I'm concerned about and propose solutions to the Council to resolve this issue in the community. The issue I highlighted in my essay was that the middle class of all ranges was not getting enough COVID-19 relief, and that there should be more relief programs and compensation for all the hard workers and risk takers in the workforce.
Hi, my name is Nancy Vogo and I applied for the Council Member for a Day Challenge. I wrote my essay on racial equality in education, specifically the effects of systemic racism on the achievement gap between Black and white children. I applied to this competition because I thought it was a good way to showcase and advocate for an issue that I felt was very important to me. It allowed me to shed light on an issue that I felt like local government could address or take care of.
Hi, my name is Pranali Kamana,
And the reason I applied for the contest was because I thought it was a way that I could give my opinion and thoughts on issues that I felt were important to me. And the issue that I highlighted in my essay was non-citizens getting a chance to vote.
I'm Daniela Perez, a senior at Northwest High School in Germantown, Maryland, as well as an active leader and intern for the Minority Scholars Program. I wrote my Councilmember for a Day essay on the lack of policy and structure for disciplinary conducts in school with a sub-focus on the inequality and disparities.
My name is Divya Bhatt, and I participated in the Councilmember for a Day contest because I wanted to get more involved with local politics. I chose to write about the ongoing opioid epidemic. Current efforts to mitigate the crisis focus on rehabilitation and the administration of naloxone, also known as Narcan, the antidote. I believe that local governments should strengthen the existing prescription drug monitoring program to collect more data on risk groups, which would allow doctors to make safer choices when prescribing.
My name is Jackie Kemie. I'm a junior at Northwest High School in Germantown. The reason why I applied for Councilmember Day is that a very close friend inspired me, and also because I saw in her connection we shared about public policy issues, which is something that cannot be changed overnight. For changes to happen, we need to speak out and let other people out there hear our voices.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Choi, and I am a sophomore attending James Hubert Blake High School. I applied for the Craig Rice contest because I was interested in perhaps pursuing a political career in my future. I take interest in current global and local social issues and want to highlight one that I believe to be especially critical for today's audience. School shootings are an issue faced by an abundant amount of young people in K-12 schools all over the country. I hope that my local leaders can achieve precautions such as increased mental health attention in schools in order to prevent these occurrences in the future.
My name is Mudia Ihile, and I applied for the Councilmember for a Day contest because I saw this as a way to present an issue I found in my community and specifically my school. The issue that I presented was on mental health in youth and schooling and how we can better improve the resources and support we have for our students to make school a more welcoming and inviting place to study and thrive in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angelo DiBari, and I'm a freshman at Good Counsel High School. I applied for Council Member of the Day to understand the role and how it helps people in our community. The issue I chose is college tuition and how everyone should be able to go without getting in a lot of debt.
Wow. I hope my colleagues are as impressed as I was. I really first want to thank Sonia Healy, Juan Hovel, and Mershai Salou, as well as Susan Kennedy and Mike Springer for all of their support, as well as my entire staff, my chief of staff, Sharon Ledner, my other staff members, Rose Taylor, Daniela Moya-Gaber, and Kristen Tribble, who have contributed to making sure that this program is what it is, which is absolutely phenomenal. What we decided to do this year, you'll notice a little different, is recognize everyone. We are in the midst of COVID, and so because of that, we decided to do things a little bit differently, recognizing that folks didn't have to do this. But you heard some of the voices and talk about the empowerment that they felt by being able to make sure that people heard them, that people saw their stories. We will be sharing all of these with each and every one of you. I encourage you to lift them up. If you are a district council member, I encourage you to reach out to these young individuals because they are our future leaders. They are the ones who are, and to our at-large members, obviously, but they are certainly going to be showcasing the great way in which we can continue to strive and thrive as a community. And so with that, I really just want to say thank you. I am so proud of the great work that each of these individuals did in making sure that their voices were heard and that their issues were addressed. And so really, again, want to thank Ms. Ivanla, our reigning council member for a day, now usurped by tons of council members for a day, more join than I say should usurp. But certainly, I know that she welcomes them with open arms, and it certainly is going to continue to be a collective body that is going to make some great things happen in our world. And so really just want to say congratulations to all of them for all of their great work. And I turn it back over to you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Joe. It was great to see you.
Thank you. For having me.
Please, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If I could ask all of my colleagues to please turn their videos back on, and so that we can actually show that we are applauding Joe, please, all of us. And we also applaud everybody who, I think it was 18, if my numbers were right, 18 people who have, I guess, are finalists for the council member for a day. And I have to tell you, sure, please.
Can I just say just one quick thing? And again, the important part about this is that this was incredibly challenging with school being in and out, all of those kinds of things. So there's so much on their minds. To really have them devote their time to do this and to make this happen just really raises it to another level. And so that just can't be said enough. And it's the reason why we decided not to pick a sole winner, because I really feel in this moment, we need to lift them all up as winners. And did just want to highlight, I want you to pay attention, look at the makeup. That looked like Montgomery County. That was not something we picked, right? That was what happened, right? We don't see race. We don't see any of those kinds of things when folks write their essays and those kinds of things. That's what happens, right? When you give people in your community the chance to have their voices heard. So let me just say again, I couldn't be more proud, not only of the fact of the great work, but also how those folks came out in terms of what we saw with the diversity of the council members for a day.
And you took the words out of my mouth. It is so very impressive. Not only were the diversity of the people who were involved, but for the diversity of the topics. I mean, they pretty much, they are listening. And we obviously are listening to them and need to continue to listen to them. And just as one last note, I do think that my colleagues and I need to, and I think Joe would agree with this as well, we need to applaud a fellow by the name of Councilmember Craig Rice for doing this, for working on this, and continuing to make certain that our Education and Culture Committee realizes all about our young people. So please join me. All right. Anything else, Councilmember Rice? We're good? Okay. Well, we're actually on time, which in itself is a surprise. So, and my video seems to be jumping on and off, so that sounded nice. Okay. And with that, we're going to continue our meeting, go to general business. And Madam Clerk, do we have any announcements, changes to the agenda, or petitions?
Yes, good morning, council members. Council President, we have a change to the agenda. We have one agenda addendum item, 13B, calls of bills for final reading. Bill 3220 is deferred. Solid waste trash, waste reduction, source reduction, and single-use straws requirements. The T&E work session will be scheduled at a later date. We also have one announcement. The council is seeking applicants for 11 positions on the county's 11-member commission on redistricting. The deadline to apply for consideration is Monday, October 26, 2020 at 5 p.m. That is all, Council President.
Thank you. The minutes have been distributed for June, all of this is 2020, June 23rd, July 7th, July 13th, July 14th, July 15th, and July 17th, 2020. They, unless there's any corrections, they're going to be approved as received. Okay. And now we're going to turn to our consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve our consent calendar?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jawando, seconded by Councilmember Reamer. Okay. I don't see, though I'm sometimes the last person to know this, that I see no one is, oh, Councilmember Rice, please.
Sorry about that, Mr. President. I'm trying to dance between my computer and my iPad, but did just want to highlight the resolution to approve the functional transfer of $204,000 for Montgomery College's operating budget. This is to, again, address some of the issues around student support and affordability because of COVID, understanding that the majority of Montgomery College students work. And so to keep those scholarships going in a time in which Montgomery College is struggling is incredibly important. And so just wanted to lift that up as a reminder to us about what continues to happen in our community. We oftentimes talk about the fact of folks being without jobs. And sometimes we don't also make the connection that these are folks that are still trying to make a go of paving a better life for themselves by going back to school to retool themselves. And so it's incredibly important, especially in the context of COVID, that we continue to support them. And so I really applaud the work of Montgomery College in doing this and keeping its commitment to making sure that we're giving resources to those students who need it. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to acknowledge item K, which is the supplemental appropriation to the county government's FY21 operating budget for the Department of Health and Human Services of $864,029 to increase somatic and mental health services at Montgomery County Public Schools. This is a very important decision that we're making here to allocate those funds. We had a very robust joint session to discuss how critical these services are at this particular moment, but also had a really good conversation about how we can work creatively to expand the availability of bilingual as well as culturally proficient mental health professionals and practitioners. And we will have a session coming up to discuss that. Nonetheless, I think it's really important, as I think every interaction that we have with our community, the issue of the challenges around mental health needs, mental health services always comes up, particularly right now. So just wanted to highlight so that folks understand that we are indeed have been able to adopt and approve a myriad of funds in order to provide more capacity to our school system, but also in county government. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to echo Councilmember Navarro's comments. We had an excellent discussion, a joint committee session between the Education and Culture and HHS committee. This council has been very in tune and has made mental health issues a priority, particularly of our students. And this is just another example of ensuring that our professionals have the resources that they need. But to Councilmember Navarro's point, we must double down and make sure that we have culturally appropriate staff in place to address those unique needs, which have disproportionately impacted so many different communities here in the county through the pandemic. So this is an important next step. There will be many more, but I appreciate the joint committee effort and the discussion and the partnership between the Health and Human Services Department in the county and Montgomery County Public Schools, as well as our provider organizations as well.
Thank you. I see no other speakers. Is that correct? As I say, sometimes I'm the last to know on this. So I see no other speakers. The motion was made by Councilmember Jawando, seconded by Councilmember Reamer, that we approve our consent calendar. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. I know that is unanimous. I say all nine members. Thank you. The next item that we have is item number 4, and it's an action item, and it's the appointment to the Board of Appeals. And Councilmember Reamer, please.
Thank you. Well, it's my honor to make a motion to nominate Mr. John Pentecost for a second term on the Board of Appeals. The council interviewed various candidates, and we were impressed by all candidates. And we were compelled by Mr. Pentecost and his service over the past term, which has been successful, and his compelling interview and comments about the experience that he brings to the board, the role of the board in providing, as he says, reasonable opportunity for county businesses and residents to meet their needs for the use of their property within the strict framework of the law. Mr. Tubin has had excellent experience in community service in the county, not only the Board of Appeals, but Historic Medley, the Countryside Alliance, Heritage Montgomery, the County Arts and Humanities Council, Washington Grove Planning Committee. He's just done so much, and we're really pleased to be able to support his continuing service. So I would make a motion that Mr. Pentecost will be nominated for a second term as on the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Navarro. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And I can see all 9 have raised your hand. That is unanimous. And we need to do a selection of the chair. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. I will move that Mr. Pentecost shall be designated as the chair of the board. That chair is a compensated position. The previous chair compensation was $22,040. I'm sure that the number of hours put in far outweighs the amount of compensation for the work. It's a labor of love. So thank you to all members of the commission, and again, move Mr. Pentecost to be designated as the chair.
And is there a second? I see a couple seconds here. Councilmember Navarro, I think you came in just a hair ahead of Councilmember Rice. So it's been moved by Councilmember Reamer, seconded by Councilmember Navarro, that John Pentecost be approved as the chair of the Board of Appeals. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Very good. Thank you very much. Now we're a full 15 minutes early. Ms. I know that we're going to be getting in the process for amending the master plan for historic preservation. Ms. Michelson, do you think it's okay if we go ahead 15 minutes early? I know Ms. Dunn is here.
I'm going to ask Ms. Dunn if everyone who needs to, if it's just her making a presentation, in which case I think we should go ahead, or if she's expecting other people to help with that.
Good morning. Yes, the planners from the planning department for historic preservation are both already on the Zoom call with us. So if we want to start early, I think that's fine.
Here you go. This could be a historic moment. We're starting something early. So that, I think
yeah, we were a little panicked about 10 minutes ago.
Very good.
So you're gonna this afternoon at 1:30 when you do the public hearings, you're gonna have a public hearing on an amendment to the master plan for historic preservation. And with the 4 new board council members, we thought it might be useful for Ms. Ballo, who is the head of the historic preservation section in the planning department, and her colleague John Liebitz, to give you just a brief overview of what that process is. It is slightly different than when we amend other master plans. It goes to the Historic Preservation Commission. They make a recommendation. It's a very involved process, and we thought it would be useful for you to understand sort of what that is. So I'm going to step away. I'm going to let Ms. Ballo take over, and I think she may even have some slides she wants to share with you.
I do. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Council President Katz and members of the board. And thank you, Pam. Thank you for having me this morning. I know that you have a packed agenda, so I will move through my presentation rather quickly. Again, my name is Rebecca Ballo, and I'm the supervisor for the Historic Preservation section. We are part of the Countywide Planning and Policy Division under Jason Sartori in the Planning Department, and we also are staff to the Historic Preservation Commission. So as Ms. Dunn had mentioned, I do have a PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will work. We can get started. Okay. Did this share out okay?
It is. We can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So again, thank you for having me this morning. This briefing is in advance of the public hearing item that is on your agenda for later this afternoon, which is the historic site designation of the Mirhan Mesrobian House. Yep. So as Ms. Dunn had mentioned, the process for designating historic sites and districts in Montgomery County is achieved through master plan designation. In some jurisdictions, it is achieved through zoning or local map amendments, but here in Montgomery County, it is achieved through amendments to the master plan for historic preservation, which is a part of the general plan for the county. And we asked for this briefing because a standalone amendment to the historic preservation master plan has not been brought forward to the council in some time. I believe we haven't done a standalone one since 2014. But we also bring forward amendments to the master plan for historic preservation as part of concurrent sector plan or other master planning efforts. For example, there will be another master plan amendment that carries forward as part of the Shady Grove amendment, which you will be hearing very soon. So I wanted to start as well with a brief discussion about terminology, because there are many different types of historic sites and historic properties. This property in particular that we will be discussing this afternoon, the Mesrobian House, is already listed on the National Register of Historic Places. But what we will be doing will be listing it to the Montgomery County Master Plan and designating it as a local site. So the National Register is an entirely separate program. It is a list of all federally registered historic properties, includes buildings, structures, and sites that have significance to the history of their community, the state, or the nation. This is an honorific listing. It requires consultation with federal agencies before any action may be taken on a property, and properties are also eligible for federal and state tax credits. But this listing, again, is purely honorific and does not protect a property from demolition. Listing to the Montgomery County Master Plan for Historic Preservation is different. Again, this is an amendment to the master plan that was adopted by the council in 1979. A property must meet criteria outlined in Chapter 24A of the County Code. And then when a property is listed and designated, it then has to undergo design review with the county's Historic Preservation Commission. The property is then also eligible for local historic preservation tax credits. So again, a little bit of background. The Master Plan for Historic Preservation was approved and adopted by the council in 1979 as an amendment to the general plan. Subsequent amendments to the master plan have always been done to designate new properties. In 1980, so shortly after the adoption of this plan in 1979, in 1980, the county passed Chapter 24A, which is the county's historic preservation ordinance. The ordinance has many purposes. The relevant one for this afternoon's discussion is that the ordinance states that the county shall identify, designate, and regulate for the purposes of protection sites of architectural, archaeological, and cultural value. And then the ordinance goes on to lay out the designation criteria that a property must meet in order to be considered to be added to the master plan. So this gets a little bit ahead of it. What happens when a property is designated, when the master plan is amended? We update our GIS layer to show the new designation for the property. The historic form that contains all of the staff's research and findings are transmitted to the Maryland Historical Trust and posted on our website. And then the project is required to undergo design review and permit approval with the Historic Preservation Commission for any alterations to the property. The Historic Preservation Commission's review is based on requirements laid out in Chapter 24A, relevant design guidelines that are adopted by the council specifically for districts, and then the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. It's important to note, and I'd like everybody to be aware that for routine maintenance, in-kind items or other de minimis changes, the HPC does not review those for property owners. Property owners also receive a 25% historic preservation tax credit from the county for documented expenses for exterior maintenance, restoration, and preservation. So back to the designation criteria in Chapter 24A, they basically fall into two buckets, historical and cultural significance and architectural and design significance. When evaluating a property for master plan amendment, the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning Board and then the County Council must find that a property meets at least one of these criteria. This is not entirely relevant to what we're going to be talking about this afternoon with the Mesrobian House, but I would like everybody to be aware that we designate, again, two different types of properties here in the county. There are historic sites, so master plan sites and then master plan districts. One is the singular, obviously, house, a farm, an office, and this property must exhibit exceptional historic significance on its own merit. A historic district is a collection of buildings, and the significance of the district is derived from the entire district or the collection of those resources. And then for districts, there are typically individual design guidelines that move forward with that designation that are approved by the council. For individual sites, we do not have design guidelines specific to those sites. The requirements in Chapter 24A and the Secretary of the Interior standards are what are used for design. So this little chart is the example of the historic preservation master plan process. As Ms. Dunn had indicated earlier, it runs pretty much the same as all of our other sector plan and master planning processes. However, there is the part that comes first is the historic preservation review. So for other master plans and sector plans, when the staff draft is brought forward to the planning board, say for Shady Grove, that is the staff draft plan. For historic preservation master plan amendments, the staff draft is what the HPC votes out from their public hearing process. And the HPC's public hearing process for master plan amendments are also governed by Chapter 24A and the HPC's own rules and procedures that were also approved by the county council in 1997. So the process, the nuts and bolts of that are fairly similar. We notify property owners that a study is being undertaken to potentially study their property designation. We hold a number of workshops with the community. For example, if this is for a district, have multiple hearings at the Historic Preservation Commission, public hearings and work sessions before the HPC is asked to take a vote on whether the site or the district meets any of the criteria in the ordinance, and then the HPC votes out to transmit the staff draft plan to the planning board, and that's where the process picks up similarly to all other master plan designations. And this is just my contact information for you or for any other members of the public who are watching. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Can I ask one thing? You were saying, and I guess if you can take off the shared screen here, that might be helpful. Yes. You were mentioning that routine maintenance does not need approval. But if someone under routine maintenance wanted to change the color, the exterior color of a building, does that need approval?
It does not. We do not regulate color in Montgomery County. We regulate what's called materiality. So for example, if someone had unpainted brick or unpainted stone and they wanted to paint that, it's changing the material nature of the masonry. So that is reviewed. If somebody has if their house is already painted white brick and they want to paint it purple, good for them. And I don't need to see that.
Well, you probably should review it if somebody wants to paint it purple.
Thank you. Ms. Dunn, did you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else to add. I thank you, Ms. Ballo, for the great presentation. It was even educational to me, and I've worked with you for a number of years, so I appreciate that. And I think it'll help the council. You will have a work session on this, and I'm sorry, I can't recall what date, the 10th. But this will not go to committee. There has been no objection to this amendment that the planning board has heard or that we've received. It's all been positive. So you will have a public hearing today. I think there are 2 speakers, and then this will come to work session and action to the council.
Okay. Councilmember Reamer, as chair of Fed, did you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just would say, we've reviewed today the process for designating a property. The council is the final say on a designation, and it does come up from time to time. Sometimes, more often, it's in the context of a master plan because the planning board will review all properties, and that they'll take the opportunity to review properties and then we might get a recommendation. So, council members should certainly be aware that it is a periodic function. We often approve, like today's recommended designation, I think is very straightforward. Support from the property owner. The board has done a terrific job explaining the historic significance, and it's smooth sailing. At times there's a lot of controversy over these projects, and perhaps even most often the most controversy is on our own buildings, buildings that we own, because it's difficult to make that call sometimes. But very different question. Designating a property is a very different question from the routine matter of getting your permit to do work on your property. I happen to live in a historic district, so I use the process. And a lot of people the idea of having to go through a process to do something with your home, puts people off. However, I will say I have found over the years that you're lucky to be able to ask people with real expertise about what you're doing, and you often find that you are able to make your resources go a little further because you're making smarter decisions, because our team in historic preservation really knows what they're doing, and they can give you great advice. So for all of the people out there who like to malign historic preservation as an owner of properties, I know that there are times when it's a challenge, but in general it's something that is you're lucky to have the support of the county government through the tax benefits and the expertise of the staff to help you through it. So don't complain too much. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate all your great work and all the team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a comment. So I'm very familiar with the process, having been a former department head and had a couple of facilities that were impacted by the process. And I have a great deal of respect for the research and all of the thought that goes in, both from the commission all the way down, and especially at the staff level. It really is extraordinary. I do think this is another example of an opportunity with COVID. Oftentimes, communities are not aware that these discussions are going on within their communities, despite our best efforts to make communities aware that these decisions are being made, but may have an impact without people realizing it or not, or hold up a project, because of a designation that's been made. And so I think there's an opportunity in all areas for us to be more proactive in recruiting residents, particularly those that would be most disproportionately impacted within the communities of those designations, to make it easier for them to be able to testify and to be able to weigh in. And through the advent of technology now, I think we've seen an increase in the number of people that have testified before the council. So just more of a comment, but I think that kind of proactive response will be important. There's one incident one situation in particular that I know Councilmember Navarro was incredible, and her team was incredible in making sure that residents came out and testified on an issue that was very important, but that people may not have been aware of had we not done that proactive step. So I'll just make that comment for now, but appreciate the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments. Thank you very much. And thank you all involved in this process. I have a feeling we'll be seeing you this afternoon, so we appreciate it. Thank you. It's my understanding that we're going to have to go back on item 3H, which is for the nominating committee for the Montgomery College Board of Trustees. It could not be under the consent, it was on our consent calendar, but in double checking, it could not be under the consent calendar. So we're going to need a motion to appoint Aletha Lloyd White to the nominating committee for the Board of Trustees of Montgomery College. Is there a motion? It was moved by Councilmember Navarro.
Second.
Councilmember Rice, you're just a touch slow. We'll give you the second. How's that sound? It's
That's
been
great.
moved by Councilmember Navarro, seconded by Councilmember Rice. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And unless I hear from staff, I think we are okay on that one. Now, we're still 15 minutes early. So
we do have Dr. Gales here to start. So
okay, well, thank you, Dr. Gales, for being a little early today. We appreciate that. Though I don't see Dr. Gales. Oh, I see the name. There we go. How are you, Dr. Gales? Yeah, we've recognized you. We've met you before. So if you could please begin. We are meeting under the council sitting as the Board of Health. Please.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Tuesday. I will go through this hopefully very succinctly and concisely to hammer home some points in a continuation of our conversation from last week, particularly Friday. So just to put some things into perspective, I think first and foremost, I think when folks are following along at home, they may have noticed some trends in the data, both from a local, a state, and a national level. We are seeing an increase in cases in a number of states, to some degree here in Maryland and certainly in our local jurisdiction. And as we've talked about before, we break numbers down in two categories. So the state presents numbers in terms of the number of positive tests that are resulted each day. And that's one way to look at it. And when we look at it that way, we have seen some large numbers reported for our jurisdiction. Earlier this week, we had a day of 158 cases reported, which was our highest number in some time. Additionally, we also break down the numbers by our REDCap surveillance system that actually breaks the data down by the number of positive tests based upon when the sample was drawn to get a sense of how many positives are coming in each day. What's of note is that in the month of October, we've had 10 days already of over 100 cases drawn by our REDCap system, and that is more than the number of days in September and August where we had over 100 cases. So we continue to look at those trends. We continue to also look at a host of other measures, as we've talked about before, on our dashboard. And as we talked about on Friday, we are working on combining those into a new graphic representation so that folks at home can see. And in particular, the primary indicators that we look at to try to get a sense of where we're going in terms of numbers are our new confirmed cases per 100,000 residents, our test positivity rate, and our rate of transmission. And so when we look at our new confirmed cases per 100,000 residents, when we break them down into different categories, that would, where we are right now, we're at 10.5. That would fall into a high risk of transmission category. When we look at our test positivity rate, which is approximately 2.5% for the state, that falls into a lower risk of transmission category. Although it's important to note that we had a conversation with the state yesterday that suggested that even in the setting of an overall test positivity that's lower, it's important to break that down by age group. And what's concerning at the state level is that we're starting to see, so in August and September, we saw a higher percentage of new cases fall into our younger categories, our younger age groups. That is shifting now back to where we're seeing higher percentages of new cases popping up into our older age groups, our 40 to 50-year-olds or 50 to 59-year-olds. And in terms of the test positivity, we're starting to see slight increases in test positivity for those older age groups. That's of note because we know that older age groups are potentially more susceptible and more likely to have more severe outcomes with COVID. Not to say that everyone does, but it's concerning in terms of they are also more likely to be hospitalized as a result of the COVID infection. And the last measure as again, primary measure to highlight is our rate of transmission that we've talked about before. Our goal is to obviously, we'd love to see that number below 0.8, certainly below 1. Our rate of transmission, it is available on the county site, was last below 1 on October 10th, where it was 0.81, and it increased to a high of 1.35 on October 12th, and currently this morning it's at 1.11. Now, we also look at other secondary indicators, including the percent change in cases. And the reason why we would be interested in looking at the percent change in cases is, again, we don't want to sit and wait 2 weeks if we're seeing an increase in cases before we make a decision or determination if we need to change course. We also look at our hospital bed utilization, our ICU utilization, COVID-related bed utilization, as well as our ability to effectively contact trace our cases. And right now, when we look at those different measures, our percent change in cases, that comes out to, we've actually seen a 29.7% change in cases over the past 7 days in terms of an increase. And that would represent a very high risk of transmission. When we look at our hospital utilization data, we see a lower risk of transmission for bed utilization and a lower risk of transmission for ICU utilization, and a moderate risk of transmission for COVID-related hospital bed utilization. So I'm throwing out a bunch of different measures to give folks at home a sense of all of the different factors that we look at to help shape and determine how we move forward, because we constantly hear that we're not putting out data or we're not putting out dashboards or it's not clear. We're making it very simple for folks at home to follow along. So stay tuned for that to move forward. We've shared the preliminary matrices that we're using with you all, and we hope to refine those and finalize those to publish to the general public in the near future. So we continue to follow those trends, continue to work with our colleagues at the state as well, as they have seen a slight uptick in hospitalizations in other areas across the state. I do want folks at home, again, to understand that we are working very closely with our colleagues in our hospitals and our health systems, so that if we do have to change course and if we are concerned about a significant sustained increase in cases in the near future, we are ready to go. We've met with our colleagues in terms of potential surge spaces and capacity. I don't want to scare folks, but I do want to level set expectations in the setting of when you're looking across the country and you're seeing cases increase and you're hearing people talk about it here on a local and a state and regional level. We have, when this all transpired the first go round in March and April, we were building new systems that we did not have in place, or we had plans in place, but they were, abstract. We had to execute and implement them on the fly. If we were to see an increase in surge in cases a second time around, we do have a lot of infrastructure in place, and we are proactively continuing those conversations to make sure, again, that we're not caught flat-footed and we're not waiting for cases to significantly increase before we step in and take action. Now, that could potentially mean having to rescind and walk back some of the provisions that we have in place right now in terms of businesses being open. What we are trying to do as our best effort is to, as first layers, be thoughtful about capacity limits and restrictions in terms of size of gatherings and those types of things before we would reflexively close down different businesses or types of businesses. Now, that said, if contact tracing comes back information and shows us that there are activities that continue to be of great concern or are directly tied to an outbreak or spike in cases, we would take the necessary actions to restrict those activities to curb potential new infections. Now, again, I don't want people to take the take-home message to be like they're closing things down immediately right now. That's not what we're talking about. What we're doing is trying to be as transparent as possible and hope the folks at home understand we're being proactive about following trends to determine what we need to do and what steps we need to take to keep our residents safe. Now, I also want to highlight that the state did send in its COVID vaccination plan to CDC earlier this week. MDH had shared some of that with the health officers later last week. And we just actually got a copy of the formal plan this morning. So as I have a chance to look through that, we will provide you all with feedback in later conversations. Additionally, testing last week We've seen increases in our testing capacity where we tested just shy of 5,000 folks this past week. And we continue to expand our partnerships and look at other ways to increase access to testing across the county. Still don't have any more information related to rapid testing. That is an evolving mechanism. So again, once we have more details from the state, the state's rapid testing is focused on nursing homes, and we're continuing to leverage resources here to look at how we can bring that online to the county to offer to residents. The last thing I want to mention is something that, we talked about before in terms of our school investigations. We are, as part of our matrix, set of matrices that we're hoping to put out to the public, we also hope to have some guidance related to it's when and how it's safe to operate schools in the setting of increasing cases. We currently have 32 active investigations involving school settings, with approximately 18 of those having a confirmed positive case or a confirmed high-risk close contact to a known positive lab-confirmed COVID test. I will stop there. And turn the floor over to Dr. Stoddard. We're happy to answer any questions you all may have. Thank you.
Well, we're going to turn to Dr. Stoddard first, and then we're going to ask her questions. So, Dr. Stoddard, good morning.
Thank you, members of the County Council, Council President Katz, for having us back. I only have a few updates today. I want to hit on a few things, and some of them will actually be continuations of what Dr. Gales has said. I know I mentioned last week that we are working on air ventilation and filtration recommendations. Last Friday, we did meet with industry representatives to go over the recommendations that we have, and see what their thoughts were, see how achievable they thought they were. They actually asked to, take a look at them and actually propose to add some additional things they thought would give alternatives to businesses that would achieve our goals, but allow people some flexibility around how that they were achieved. And so we're waiting for their feedback, and we'll be looking to publish those guidelines. Again, they're going to be guidelines. They're not going to be requirements moving forward. For our non-public schools, Dr. Gales already alluded to, we're continuing our plan review process. We're at about 30 plans. I believe we've reviewed 22 of those at this point. So we have a handful of plans left to review. A few have only arrived this week. So we're catching up with all of those. Our next non-public school meeting will be this Friday. We will continue that collaboration. We'll talk more about some of our feeding programs as part of our Coronavirus Relief Fund update, but I will note that we did submit our most recent feeding request to the state. So every month we are required under FEMA to get an approval to continue our feeding programs underneath the FEMA program. We've gotten approval since March 30th, and we are hopeful that we'll get our next continuation that will allow us to put some of those funds towards the FEMA Public Assistance Program, and we'll talk more about that later. I do want to talk a few minutes about the late night alcohol sales program, because I know that will be an area of questioning. By the definition, we have met at least one of the criteria to suspend that program. That is our 3-day case rate. We had talked about amending that to a 7-day case rate, but frankly, that would have been met as well. Dr. Gales and I have been looking very closely at the numbers, the contact tracing data, and while we don't have any reason to believe that program is the cause of any of the issues that we have seen specifically, we are very closely monitoring that. It is, frankly, as Dr. Gales said, we are discussing broader pullbacks if necessary, and are simply looking at this week's data to try and really figure out whether we're in a steady climb upwards, or whether last week represents just another blip in a series of blips, and we'll take action accordingly. I know by letter of the executive order, I think we're looking very closely at that program. We're up to about 220 businesses who are participating in it. We have a number of businesses who have been denied because of recent citations or violations. And we'll continue to do that process to be thoughtful about providing the accommodation to businesses that allow it. But at this time, we're not ready to roll it back. I mean, if it's demonstrated this week that we are part of a continuing trend, I think we'll have to go forward with suspending the program. But at this point, we have not made the decision to do so. I know that would be something you all would be asking about. we are looking very, very closely at the numbers, and we'll provide some additional feedback as soon as we finish that review. We'll be talking to, we'll talk more broadly about elections. We're obviously doing a ton of work in the election space right now to address preparing to open early voting sites. Actually tomorrow we'll begin the setup process for that. Today's the final day for accepting the ballot requests. So if you have not gotten your ballot request in, please make sure that you put it in a Dropbox or get it. Has to be received today. And so we'll be checking the Dropboxes throughout the day to get all those last minute ballot requests. So please do get those requests in if you have not. I think that's all I want to highlight on. We're going to hit on a bunch more in terms of specific updates as part of our CRF update to you all after this. So I think for this point, I'll stop and take questions.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask my colleagues, we're going to be under the 5-minute rule, and I will do the same. My question, though, is really, I saw something on the news. It was either yesterday morning or this morning. Can't remember because the days run together, about that the DC now has an app for contact tracing. I'm certain you're familiar with it. Is that something that we're looking into as well?
So DC did roll out their app, and this is comparable to what, if you recall, it's been over a month now where the governor announced that the state would be rolling that out and the state would be working on it. So I don't have any updates to the system that that the state is providing, other than to say that the state has been working on a similar platform to roll out across the state.
Very good. Thank you. And with that, Councilmember Jawando, please. We're going to do the 5-minute rule. Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard. Good to see you as always. Thanks for all the work you're doing. A couple of questions. In relation to the rates that we're seeing in our as far as the racial and ethnic breakdowns, you mentioned the nursing home, Dr. Gales. I've noticed that over the last, week or so, that we've seen a number of cases, particularly in the white non-Hispanic group. Seemed like to me it's edged up. Or is that nursing home related, or could you give an update on just, and if not, that's fine, but just where we are on the nursing home issue? You mentioned the state's efforts and their focus. How are we doing in Montgomery County with relation to testing and our case rate within nursing homes and contact tracing related to that?
Sure, that's a great question. And it's an important question because certainly if we're seeing an increase in cases, we get really nervous about those places that have our most vulnerable residents. So as it stands, we have not seen an uptick or increase in cases related to the nursing home population. Fortunately, they have robust testing in place that's testing their staff as well as their residents on a routine basis to try to identify particularly any asymptomatic cases as quickly as they can to remove them from potential transmission. If you recall, that was really the ultimate source of a lot of the cases related to the nursing homes back in April and May. And hopefully with that continued sustained testing effort, that will prevent us from seeing a similar increase in cases back to what we saw earlier in the spring.
From the state data, roughly 7% of the statewide cases have an association with congregate care living, and that includes nursing homes, homeless shelters. So it's about 7% collectively for all of those environments. Or 7%. 7%. It's a relatively small number. That includes daycares as well. So any congregate care setting is about 7%. So it is, and that's I would say not incredibly low. There are sectors that are lower, like colleges are 3 or 4%. So it's it's moderate.
I appreciate the comment, the kind of anticipation, Dr. Stoddard, on the evening program for the restaurants. I'm glad you're monitoring it. I think all of us agree if you're seeing as our case rates go up and if we're not in compliance, then we should roll it back. I think I just want to be on record that there's no ambiguity from my perspective on that, and we need to do what we can to keep people safe.
We agree. Can I just add 1 second? Sorry to take your time. we're monitoring it very closely. We've sent teams out every weekend. Last weekend we did have one citation issued, and we issued a couple of warnings. And so we're being very, very conscious of what we see in that environment, and in places where we're having violations, those places that do have violations are having their permits rescinded or will have them rescinded. And so we're very cognizant of that program and the broader concerns that Dr. Gale spoke to.
And the last question I have, I think I've got a minute and a half here. You mentioned the cases of older residents kind of going up, and I couldn't help but think when I've been watching over the last weeks and months, younger people congregating, doing things, not wearing masks, depending on the setting, that was eventually going to come home. That they were going to bring the virus home, and you were going to see cases go up in the older population. Based on our case rate and contact tracing, is that a trend that you can extrapolate, that we're seeing that as far as who's causing the infections or what activities? Is there any information we can glean from that?
I think it's tricky and too early to tell, but you're right. I mean, this was, a big concern because part of, when we saw the increase in cases in younger people, some folks have the rationale as, well, they don't get it sick. So, they're not going to be hospitalized. They're not going to die from it. So if they get it, it's not that big of a deal. But this has ultimately been our concern. So as, young people get exposed to more things and are out, whether it's in school or in settings that you described or in other places, their potential transmission to older groups has been a concern. So what we do know is that in the contact tracing information, we continue to see family gatherings as a leading source. We continue to see, larger social gatherings, whether it's family gatherings or other places similar to potential congregations of, of young people that you described. So it's always been a concern. I think we are starting to see some influence and secondary consequence to that. But I also want to say again that I think that there is a general fatigue and relaxing of adhering to the precautions and guidelines that is contributing to it as well.
And I know, Mr. President, I'm done. On the family gatherings, I would encourage us all to do some messaging around that, because I think that is a huge problem. People think because they love their family and they miss them and they have fatigue, they think they're not infected and they can't spread it. And I've even had to catch myself on that. So I think that's something we need to emphasize a lot.
We are working on an effort that we're referring to as the Keep Grandma Safe effort. As I know Dr. Gale saw it yesterday. Julie Parker is actually working on a specific effort around that to get a messaging campaign going on that very specific issue as we get closer to the holidays, where family gatherings are only going to increase.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the update. So just a couple of things. I received a message, and I know we shared it with both Dr. Stoddard and Dr. Gales regarding testing in the Wheaton area. And it was somebody who, was symptomatic, et cetera, went to Proyecto Salud, but then first checked the portal to get information on where the person could go. But then when he got to Proyecto Salud, he was told that they do not accept people who are symptomatic, that it's for asymptomatic people without health insurance. Of course, his concern was that, if he had known, he would have not gone there. He doesn't own a car. He didn't want to take public transportation. But I guess my request is that in the portal, which is great that everybody's going there to get the information, it would be great if we could add just, a couple of sentences under each of our partner sites that not only says, when they're open, no appointment necessary, but also the types, if you are symptomatic, you don't go there, basically. So what it's for, I think that would be really useful. And because, in terms of logistics, I can see how that can be a problem. Also, interested in the app, contact tracing app as well, that was mentioned earlier. I thought it was kind of an interesting tool. So would be interested in see how we're going there. Thirdly, this issue of the family gatherings, very important one. And glad to hear that there will be, some public education and messaging around that. I know that the Por Nuestra Salud y Bienestar also has, I know they're going to launch, I don't know if they did already, but a public education campaign that I thought was really great. utilizing grandma, abuelita. So it'd be great if we could mirror that as well, because it is so true that I think that it's a tough time. I feel like the confluence of fatigue with the fact that we're now entering the cold season, that we know there's going to be increases, is a recipe for disaster, and people are just so frustrated. Maybe they feel like, hey, I've been good all this time and I need to see my family, so it's understandable, yet it's just such a, bad time. So to the extent that we're able to push out those messages as much as possible, I think that would be very, very useful.
Duly noted.
Thank you so much. And please, let's update the dashboard with the information about our sites. Also regarding that, I know that we were doing pop-up testing as well, in mobile testing, and to the extent that I guess as we start seeing tracking whether things are increasing, cases are increasing, maybe we do need to provide that precisely for people who might be symptomatic but don't own a car and don't want to take public transportation. It's an interesting challenge with that. So I don't know if perhaps some type of effort on pop-up testing and mobile testing may be an interesting way to address that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just got a text from my dad. Don't forget about abuelito too. Just a couple points really quick. I read this morning that the District of Columbia has added 8 states as being deemed high risk, thus requiring people going to and from those states to quarantine for up to 2 weeks, making it 39 states that are now on the list, which is mind-blowing. But Dr. Gales, does the state of Maryland have a similar provision? I know we had discussed this months ago, but is there any update on that?
So there is a list that they have in terms of places for recommendations. Now, in terms of enforcement, there is no, hardcore enforcement of that, but there is, general guidelines that they put out in terms of high risk, high volume places that you mentioned.
Gotcha. And then just as we're talking about family, families are talking about Thanksgiving plans right now. My family is doing that. And I know Dr. Fauci, understandably last week was on national television stating that we need to really be cautious here as we make those plans. Are there guidelines or are there tips that we can provide locally, or steps that families should consider taking, as they consider travel plans, as they consider Thanksgiving plans, acknowledging that family spread is unfortunately one of the biggest spreaders?
Well, that's an excellent question. And, I've been having conversations with my family about the very same thing, about if we're going to get together for Thanksgiving, where does it make sense to do that? Where is the safest? And whatever plans we have, that will involve coming up with a testing strategy. So everyone getting tested probably multiple times. And also recognizing it would also probably include some quarantining. So, let's say I get tested a week out from seeing my mom and dad and my siblings and nieces and nephew, and then repeating that test. And while we're waiting for the results to get together, asking everybody to limit as much as you can your exposure to other people, so that, we can be confident in the results, hopefully negative results that we get before we, share a space together. To be able to do that safely. So it also introduces, I think that's as part of any campaigns that we put out, we can come up with a comprehensive list of different strategies to help folks if they, choose to spend time together during the holidays.
Thank you, Dr. Gales. And that brings me to my final point. And Vice President Hucker raised this last week, which I appreciated. I had tweeted out after I got a test a week ago and was hammered by a number of people who said, why are you getting a test? Why are you wasting a test? I think we have caught up to the testing point now where we can be proactive. And so if you are going to be traveling and interacting with people who are in one of those at-risk categories, which includes so many of our loved ones, including our parents and our grandparents, we are now at a point where we can proactively receive these tests. And it's an important component of addressing community spread. And so as we deliver those clear messages, that's important to reiterate to our residents that we are now, thank goodness, at a point where testing has reached a point where we can be more proactive. So thank you both very much for your continued leadership, and especially your teams as well.
If I may add to that, I actually saw on social media yesterday, someone suggests that you could only get one free test in Montgomery County. And why would you use it when you're asymptomatic? And I want to make clear that is not the case in Montgomery County. If you need a test, come get a test. There's no limit on the number of free tests that you can get through our sites. So those rumors are certainly out there, and we have to counter them as much as we can. We have enough testing, as Councilmember Robina said, to test multiple times in Montgomery County. If you're a frontline worker, we certainly recommend you be tested multiple times on a regular basis based on how many people you interact with. So there is no limit on the number of free tests you can get through Montgomery County at all.
Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Well, thank you very much. And Dr. Gales, Dr. Stoddard, always thank you for great updates. Dr. Stoddard, I did want to pick up on something that you had highlighted before in talking about air handling and HVAC systems. You know that the Education and Culture Committee was presented with a proposal by MCPS to enhance some of its HVAC systems as a whole. And so I'm always looking for the latest guidance in terms of making sure that they have the most up-to-date as we look to, at some point, bring our children back to school and it's safe to do so. So that being said, are those things incorporated in where MCPS is? Have you had those conversations with them, et cetera?
Yeah, we shared the draft guidelines that they're subject to change. We hadn't met with the industry representatives as of when I'd shared them with MCPS, but I have shared them with Esty McGuire, and she has shared them on to the facilities team to review. And so they are absolutely aware of those. And we have spoken to them about their request. Obviously, they've already committed to making many of the changes that are included in that. They've made this CIP ask, and I think you're aware of this, that they're going to be making these changes because they know that they have to. But obviously, it's going to, if it has to come out of their budget, it will be a greater pressure on them. If it's supplemental, then they have to take away from other areas. But they're going to make the changes one way or the other, essentially, is what they said, because they recognize that they need to.
Excellent, because I know that guidance was incredibly appreciated, and any new guidance in terms of just making sure that we're getting the right stuff is incredibly important, similar to the guidelines. And so, Dr. Gales, that brings me to my next question for you. Now that we have seen spikes across the nation that are much larger than we've been in a situation before, is there conversation from CDC regarding new guidance in opening schools for those school systems that have not opened? Is there new guidance for schools that are already open, and some of the risks we've seen across this country and across this state? Instances where schools or classrooms have had to be shut down, hundreds of students have had to be quarantined. So certainly from that perspective, are you seeing anything on the ground in terms of what's guiding us when it comes to school openings or closures?
So at this point, there have not been any new updated guidelines released either from the CDC or the state. Hence, kind of our push to include some guidelines and metrics for both non-public and public schools to help guide them in this time of uncertainty and increase in the numbers.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Under time.
Thank you. Wow. And I know that you noted it, too. Thank you. Councilmember Reamer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Helpful briefings. I guess I just wanted to comment on the nighttime, issue. To me, we are in violation of our ordinance. I didn't think there would be kind of an option here, but it says what it says. So, this is not like a position I enjoy taking. I just, however, the language of the ordinance was pretty clear. If it exceeds 100 on a 3-day average, we exceed that. I think it's an important point that was made about whether the current rise of cases, whether it would have caused that. I don't think there's any likelihood that we would see such a dramatic, change of numbers it's not the cause of the rise of cases. I suppose it's just that it's riskier to be out there as cases are rising as much as anything else. But I continue to believe that there's some issues here that, with enforcement, I think it's really challenging. I would appreciate, as a follow-up, how many of the businesses were able to visit, on a kind of nightly basis. But moving on, I'm interested in the view of both of our doctors here. What are you seeing? There has been starting to be some reporting about schools and safety, and just generally, a slightly different angle than our education chair's questions, which are also important. Just kind of like observing from what's happening around the country, and we're starting to see some data and synthesis. So I'm just interested in what your takeaways thus far from what you've seen. I think I'll start with Dr. Gales.
I'm going to attempt to try to answer your question if I understand correctly.
I could be more precise if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
There was a Brown University study that looked at all the school districts and concluded that the case rate was lower among the school population than the general population. There have been, to me it seems a little early, but there have been some studies of the existing openings, and
Sure.
I'm interested in what your view is here so far.
Well, I think part of it is informed by what, and I hate to use the term because I've been told I use it a lot. It's to level set kind of the expectations.
It's comforting to me when you say that. I've got no problem with that.
So I think it depends on what your baseline is. And by saying that, I think it depends on, so we have some folks that have said, well, you opened up schools, and yes, you've had cases, and there may be a lot of cases, but, there aren't deaths, and we haven't seen this, large scale, outbreaks in terms of different places to, have concern. On the flip side, there are others who say, one case is too many. So, if it's one case in a school, that's too many. So I think it depends on the perspective in terms of, how you're assigning that baseline. I think there have been some best practices that have been able to be identified. For example, inclusion of some type of routine testing, whether it's offering that testing for your staff and students or, having them go to other venues, because that has allowed, certain schools to be able to identify cases before they walk into the door as quickly as possible. Whereas in other situations, I think it has created, so that's been a good thing. On the other side is there have been some chaos and interruptions that have been caused because you also have to report COVID-like illnesses as well. And even though that criteria has been refined in terms of major criteria and minor criteria, that does, if a teacher shows up to school and has a fever and has some respiratory symptoms, whether it's COVID or not, we have to pull that teacher out. We have to quarantine at least that classroom and any others until the results come back one way or the other. So I think that, again, depending upon your perspective and baseline, could determine whether you think it's been successful or not. But we have been able to get some best practices in place that we can recommend to other folks. But also we have seen our disease control staff here and in other places have to spend a significant amount of time dealing with those COVID-like responses, providing guidance to those schools. And so fortunately, we don't have, even though we do have a lot of schools in session right now, we don't have the full complement of schools in place. And in many of those that have had cases, they have not been in schools. Fortunately, they've, to mitigate potential transmission, they've still been in some form of a virtual or a limited in-person model that has limited capacity, which has kept us from seeing potential larger outbreaks related to those index cases.
And if I may add, there's a couple ways, there's sort of a mixed bag here. And what I mean by that is some of these studies that look at positivity rate across the school age populations across the country it's important to recognize that we're not every place in the country. And like, even I have family in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania school districts are largely open. You cannot get a test in Pennsylvania unless you are symptomatic in the counties that I have family living in. And so it is really hard to discern how many cases you're seeing in environments in school-age populations where they're more likely to be asymptomatic but fully capable of transmitting, number one. Number two, I would add that some of the best data, just because of how much time has passed and allow it to be reviewed, is around what the decisions were in April and May around or March, April, and May, I guess you could say, around closures. Around the country, there is a body of literature is pretty clear that closing of schools and closing of restaurants had dramatic impacts on curbing the illness in April and May. And so that data is pretty clear. And so while we've opened schools and we've learned more since we knew in April and May, and our conditions are very different from when they were over there, it is clear that children via the school systems, and adults via the school systems for that matter, are capable of and were a contributing factor to our early outbreak in March, April, and May, and would seemingly be the same if we see a ramp up in the fall again. And so that is that is pretty clear and something that we definitely paid a lot of attention to. Now, the governor's order and the change in his order leaves us in a really challenging place. In the spring, we would have been able to make a broader closure order if we needed to, but it's not clear, no matter what the conditions happen in the fall, whether or not the governor will support that. And his executive order certainly has been changed in such a way that we don't have the same authorities we had in the spring to enact some of those broader closures. On a facility-by-facility basis, it's clear we can, but if there's a broader need to, based on the continued escalation, that authority is really questionable.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Dr. Gales and Dr. Stoddard, thank you again for another presentation and for re-upping the dashboard and the importance of the dashboard, because as more and more constituents contact us, knowing that the situation is changing, by the day or at least by the week, more and more people will be going to that dashboard to see how we are doing and looking toward that dashboard for future policy initiatives and guidelines coming from all of us. So I'm glad we're re-upping it. The only question I really have, my colleagues have all asked really good questions today, but the comment, one comment I've received in the last week, it was in an email from the president of the North Bethesda Village, Ms. Jean Hochran, and she specifically asked about the county providing flu shots, something else that is out there. And specifically, Ms. Hochran asked about providing drive-through testing, and then also if the county is able to provide high dosage shots for seniors. I know you all in particular have been walking and chewing gum, running marathons and chewing gum. We're multitasking as much as we can, but with regard to flu shots, what are we doing here to keep people safe from that ailment as well?
So our senior administrator for communicable disease, NAPI, who oversees all those programs, reached out directly to the individual, your constituent who sent you the email, and addressed the concerns. We don't purchase, HHS doesn't purchase the high dose flu vaccine. That is referenced within that. We do actually have drive-through clinics scheduled. We have one that's scheduled at universities at Shady Grove using the regular flu vaccine. And we also are going to host a number of other sites already on the books, including at a venue in White Oak. And we're looking to pair with our food distribution sites in other areas to create kind of a one-stop place where folks can come and potentially get tested, get linkage to social support services and food and things like that, and also get their vaccine. So those are the strategies that the county has employed so far in terms of outreach for the flu vaccine. I do want to emphasize to folks at home that, again, much like when we talked about testing, the leading provider of flu shots and flu vaccines are the healthcare enterprise. So if you do have access to a primary care provider, we do encourage you to utilize those spaces, as well as if you have access, for example, from a CVS, a Walgreens, a Target, those types of venues as well that offer the flu shots for minimal to no charge as well. So we're leveraging as many resources as we have, and as we are able to schedule more appointments, we'll make sure to make those readily available to the general public.
Now, I appreciate you sharing what the county is planning on doing, but then also just reminding us about the healthcare network that is all around us. And I know I've family members who have gone to Minute clinics to get COVID testing because they were unable to go to one of the county facilities, when some of those lines were much longer. But clearly, if people do not have adequate health care, there are going to be opportunities to receive more flu shots, and you just shared some of those with us. So I'll reach out to your office and get some more details so that I can respond personally to the constituents reaching out to me. I'm glad to know that you and your team have already replied to Ms. Hochran. That's good to know. And thank you both for being with us today and for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you all might recall that Councilmember Rice, when he made a note, he was under a budget. Well, that didn't last that long. Councilmember Rice, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And this is, well, I don't know if it's going to be brief. So the repercussions for COVID, everybody always talks about that. But there's been a lot of talk around some of the other issues that happen with people who contract COVID. And I think that part of what you said, Dr. Gales, before that sparked this was a conversation that we had in the household where folks like, well, people aren't necessarily dying. You're not hearing about people dying as much. And so then folks kind of push it off that, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Can you talk about some of the other conversations, including the CDC's latest around, and I'm going to say it wrong, but myocarditis, I think it is, but diseases of the heart that are of issue, lung disease, all those kinds of things that people who've contracted COVID, even who have been asymptomatic, they've still tracked some of them who've also presented these other long-term effects. And so the question is, should people who've contracted COVID, but who've recovered, who've been asymptomatic, should they be going to their primary care physician and getting those follow-up checkups for those very types of things to make sure that some of those long-term effects haven't also happened?
So you introduce one of the big conundrums that we have related to COVID is that we're finding out new things on a daily basis. And so, for example, one of the things that we're very careful about is not just simply using fatality rates as a measure of success in terms of how things are going, or hospitalization rates. For example, when we look at younger people, there have been concerns about long-standing neurological impact secondary to COVID. We've also seen evidence, the relationship that you talked about in terms of myocarditis has come up specifically in the context of athletes who have tested positive for COVID, who have gone on to have complications. I can think of, there was a study by Penn State that they released. There were some issues, some controversy around the study, but there was concern that athletes who test positive for it are more susceptible to developing myocarditis. And for the folks at home, that is inflammation of the wall and muscle of the heart, which is treatable, but you can imagine that could cause some significant concerns. And I know of at least there was a student athlete at Indiana who had similar issues. So I saw the hand go up for time, but
not for you. That was
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a host of potential complications. Others, long-standing fatigue and exhaustion, issues with pain in certain areas, joints, back pain, for example. And so we're still finding out new complications on a daily basis. And it just kind of underscores what you said is it's tricky to just look at it from the perspective of, well, fatalities are down and hospitalizations are down. We simply don't know the full complement of potential complications, which is, again, why we want to emphasize to folks at home why we're not just saying, okay, well, this isn't that bad. We can just, we can live with a few hundred cases a day or, a new baseline because it's not that complicated. Or, for example, some folks have compared it to the flu. Well, you get the flu and you recover and you're fine. Typically, because we have a larger set of data points related to the flu, we can say fairly confidently, that getting the flu, you recover and you're not going to have these secondary complications. We simply don't have that same comparable data set to be able to say that confidently and assuredly related to having a COVID diagnosis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Now, we're going to move on. I have a feeling that I know that Earl would probably be staying on this, but Dr. Gales, I'm not sure if you're staying for the second part of this. And this is the update on the Coronavirus Relief Fund. I know that Mr. Madaleno is here, and so if you could please give us a background on that, please.
If I could, this is Marlene Michaels.
Please,
I
yes,
can
Marlene.
start with an introduction. Last week, the council was briefed on the status of the CRF fund and raised a lot of concerns. And at that point, Councilmember Navarro suggested that there would be weekly updates linked to these, your updates that you're already receiving on the health issue. And so starting today and every Tuesday going forward, we will be providing you, or I should say the executive staff will be providing you with updates on the CRF fund. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Madaleno, who will take you through it for today.
And may we very prominently thank Councilmember Navarro for the suggestion. It's a better than a good suggestion. And I know that Mr. Madaleno wants to give us the updates timely as well. Please.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. President and council members. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to Councilmember Navarro for suggesting that we come back and clear up any misinformation that inadvertently was left with my presentation last week, and to give the subject matter experts on each one of these programs the opportunity to discuss what's been going on, because in the end, it's more important to hear from them and to have you have the opportunity to ask them the questions. So briefly, to reiterate, since the outset of the pandemic, the council has approved 31 special appropriations to address the needs of our residents and businesses impacted by COVID-19. $133.6 million has been appropriated, primarily in the CRF dollars, but also in county general funds. As of October 15th, 75.8 million, or 56.7% of the money has been spent or encumbered. I need to, I'm going to quote Dr. Gales, to level set expectations. We are never going to hit 100% because, as you know, you've appropriated some money. We've moved forward with spending it. For example, in the PHEG program, we had money that did not go out the door. So then that was repurposed for the Reopen Montgomery program. We will be presenting a proposal to repurpose some of that money. So because you cannot disappropriate any money, there will be some programs that we have come to an agreement that they will never get to 100%, so that money is being repurposed. So I don't want anyone to be thinking that the final is going to be always 100%, but whether or not we actually spend certainly 100% of the CRF dollars. So just wanted to clarify the difference between spending down the CRF dollars and fully appropriating each one of the special appropriations, considering our unique rules. OMB sent over a chart with the regular report about all the different special appropriations on Friday. When you look at your initial round of special appropriations, those adopted more than 20 weeks ago, 80% of that has been spent, and most of the unspent money has been repurposed. The next group of appropriations, which were roughly 14 that were adopted 10 to 19 weeks ago, about half have been spent or encumbered. We talked about some of those largest dollar figures where it was have been unspent or unencumbered. And over the next few weeks, we will be explaining to you why that is and what potential solutions there are should we identify an inability to spend those federal funds before the end of the calendar year. And then, of course, you've done a handful of appropriations since then, and that we are still putting together the plan to how to spend them. On the FEMA reimbursement update, as I mentioned during the hearing last week, that we were coming up with a different approach to how to handle assembling the reimbursement requests from FEMA. Tama County employees, as I mentioned, has been formed to handle the documentation process that will occur over the next little more than 2 months. We're calling it the Federal Aid Reimbursement Submission Teams. The FARS team is actively working with departmental personnel to identify and gather the proper documentation for the county's emergency-related expenditures that were incurred in response to the pandemic in a highly organized and detailed manner required by FEMA. We will be submitting the first $18.2 million worth of reimbursements this Friday, the 23rd. We will be putting in another 13.8, which we've already assembled, no later than the beginning of November. And then we have a schedule for another $20 million request in the middle of November, another $18 million by the end of November, and another $50 million by the end of December. So we have an aggressive plan to get the FEMA reimbursements in. We will be updating you on a regular basis as to where we are in the process of submitting whether we've submitted it, where we are in the assembling the paperwork to put in the submission, and where we are in any feedback from FEMA. I'm sure Dr. Stoddard can tell you the District of Columbia put in a large request and got a very quick answer in roughly 2 weeks from FEMA about a reimbursement, and almost everything they requested, if I understood it, was covered, and they are aggressively appealing the rest. So because many of you last week in your questions asked about programs, understandably, that are focused on individual assistance, we wanted to update you today on the EARP, the Emergency Assistance, the Emergency Assistance Relief Payment Program, and its status. And Joanne Barnes is here to talk about EARP Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, how we're already through phases 1, 2, 3, and where we are in Phase 4, and the plan to spend all of that money, and then the other things that they have been doing to provide assistance to individuals and families in our community. And then because there was a conversation about food assistance, and both the program that I believe
Rich, you are frozen.
As frozen faces go, that's not too bad, though.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So Mr. Madalino had asked me in advance to explain that they're having all kinds of power issues in the EOB, and that if he suddenly went dark, that would be the explanation. So perhaps, Ms. Barnes, can you jump in for the next part of the presentation? Because it sounds like he was introducing you.
Joanne, you're muted.
There you go.
Thank you for having me here. For the record, I'm Joanne Barnes, Chief of Children, Youth, and Family Services for the Department of Health and Human Services. I want to talk a little bit about the Emergency Assistance Relief Payments Program. I will say as a preface that I understand that money came to us in 2 appropriations. My team has always thought about it as one appropriation of $10 million for that program, but I think that the information I give you will cross both of those appropriations. To date in this program, we have spent $5.86 million in the all of the first 3 phases of the EARP program. The 4th phase just opened on October 5th, and that phase includes several expansions to reach more families. The expansions begin with an increase in the federal poverty level for income eligibility for the program. We started with 50% of federal poverty level at the beginning of the pandemic. And the reason we started so low, if you recall, that was when many businesses shut down. Many of the families that we were trying to reach had lost their jobs, did not have access to any of the stimulus benefits or unemployment. And we wanted to make sure that we reached the neediest families. Our expectation was, honestly, that we would distribute this money much more quickly than we did. And that was for several reasons, including our use of community partners. But it did not go as quickly as we hoped, but we did reach the neediest families. So we have in phase 4 increased that income guideline to 150% of federal poverty level. In addition, we have made some changes to the benefit amount. If you are in the lower range, 0 to 75% of federal poverty level, we've increased the benefit basically by an additional $500. If it's a single adult, the increase is only $250. If you're in the income eligibility guideline between 75 and 150% of FPL, then the benefit amount stays as the original proposal. So that the change in income guidelines, the change in benefit amount, and the third change is that we have opened the program to provide additional supports to families that were the head of household or one of the income earning members, heads of household, has suffered COVID positivity, and it is impacting the household income, creating a financial burden on the family. So that is the third change to phase 4. In the meantime, though, phase 2 and 3, where we work with our partners and we work with our HHS case managers and various programs, those phases continue to be open and available. With the onset of phase 4, we also opened up an online portal. So families can go right to that portal and apply. If they are uncomfortable still working directly with government, new families can still continue to go to our processing partners, and they can file their applications through that original process where they work with our 7 processing partners. Let me talk just a little bit about what we've done financially. In the first phase, where we issued to families that were enrolled in Care for Kids, we issued slightly over $1,077,000. For phase 2 and 3, which we combined together, that's benefits that were made through our partners, as well as through many of our HHS case managed programs like Linkages to Learning or the cluster programs, to name a few. We issued $4.3 million in benefits. We also, as you know, through working with the partners, there were some administrative fees to help offset the work that they would do to bring families in. And those administrative fees were approximately $380,000. So in total, we have spent $5.8 million. Of the 4.1 that we have remaining, it is our anticipation that, number one, we've already spent $800,000 of the last $5 million, but of the rest, it's our anticipation that we will spend at least 90% of that money. We believe that considering the new COVID category, one thing I didn't mention, for families that originally got a benefit in that lower range of 0 to 50%, we heard from case managers, we heard from 311 staff, and we heard from our partners, our community partners at the processing agencies, that families were coming back in asking for more funds. So that additional bit, the $5 will be sent to families who received the first benefit. I clear that
I think they may also want to do a sort of public
Greg,
awareness campaign
you're not on mute.
on doing the.
I'm going to text him. Okay, go ahead, please, Ms. Barnes.
So we are sending the additional $500 to those families. Between the COVID families that we expect to bring on and the benefits that we will pay to families that already got the lower amount, that we want to make sure there's equity between the families that applied early and the families that are applying now. And with the additional new families that we expect to come in, we really do think that we can spend most of this money before the end of this calendar year. I think that the applications will come in. There are some concerns about our ability to process the applications quickly. There is some documentation that needs to be submitted and verified, but I do believe with the changes that we made, we are well on target to see an increase in applications. In the first 2 weeks, since October 5th, we already have almost 400 applications submitted for the new phase of the EARP program. I think that I'll stop there and see if there are any questions, but that is a summary of where we started, what changes we made, and what we expect to happen over the next 10 weeks.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. I don't see any questions at this point, so I'm assuming the next person who was going to make a presentation was.
I can introduce.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know who's the new MC here. Go ahead, please.
So the next thing we wanted to talk about, because there were some questions about the food security programs, we wanted to have Mark Hodge and Netta Squires, and I believe Josh Waters may add to some of this because there's been an update in the budget. But they wanted to talk about, to me, the food programming has been one of the most successful areas in our response to COVID-19. And one thing that I do not think came across clearly in Mr. Malino and I's presentation last week is that food is a good example of a program that we had intentionally paced out so that the money would last over the entire period of performance, not just rush to put all the money out in the beginning and not have anything reserved for the remainder, but also an area where we were getting initially substantial federal support through USDA and other programs that has now changed, and we want to make sure that we recognize that change in some of our budgeting as well. And I'm sure that Mr. Hodge and Ms. Squires will talk a bit about that, but I think there's some really good success stories to tell about the county's efforts, but also our partnership with nonprofits, private sector, and others. So, Mark and Netta.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President and council members for asking us to speak to you today. I agree with Earl that is definitely one of food assistance has been our most successful program through this time. To date, we have spent and or encumbered more than $10 million. The vast majority of that, probably 95% of that, has been direct food purchases that have gone to all of the food providers, or food assistance providers across our county. We are working with over 105 different providers in some way, shape, or form to assist them with getting food to the residents, knowing that the increased need related to COVID has put all of them at a disadvantage for their normal programming. And so being able to purchase bulk or shelf-stable foods or fresh produce, or to get them linked to funding for capacity building has been our focus for the past 6 months. So since the initial appropriation of $1.2 million, 750 plus an additional appropriation for that we had the food access grants, we've now finished that. We've gotten the final reports from all of the providers who participated in that grant program for culturally appropriate foods, and as we wrap that up, we'll be sending out the final report to everyone to see how that money was spent and how many residents were served by that amount of food going to those providers. We are also are wrapping up a new grant, the Farm to Food Bank program, where we had local farms who participated in a grant process to get food, to get money so they could enhance the farming that they're doing, and then turn around and provide food to MANA and other food banks for with the additional capacity that they have now from their farms. And then we're also in the process of starting a grant program for community gardening that we're. Sorry, I got another call. So the community gardening program that we hope to be able to provide with recipients technical assistance and some capacity to assist with building and maintaining community gardens throughout Montgomery County. So those are some of the grant programs that we've participated in. You may have heard, I'm sure not may have heard, I'm sure you absolutely heard about the USDA boxes. At some point this summer, our high point this summer, we were getting about 26,000 boxes per week. Each of those boxes were about 20 pounds, and they were being distributed far and wide across the county by many of our providers. As of September 19th, that number dropped dramatically to 4,000. We have gotten the state involved. We've gotten Senator Van Hollen and our other Montgomery County delegation at the federal level involved in trying to address that and find out what happened, why that happened. But right now we are receiving 4,000 boxes. We are supplementing that with additional funding to local produce providers for bulk produce. And that's with some of the funding that we have. So we can supplement that a little bit. Unfortunately, the cost to get that back up to 26,000 boxes was quite prohibitive. Instead, we are supplementing that with additional shelf-stable foods that we are providing through two vendors that we have purchased through two vendors. And then the final update is we have some good purchasing power just from our purchase orders with Food Pro and Martini Foods, two state. They're both state providers within Maryland, but we don't have the buying power of MANA and Capillary Food Bank. And so what we've done in our new with our new funding, or with additional funding that we've had, but a new program is to give a large sum of money to Capillary Food Bank and MANA to use their purchasing power, which we believe will go much further and be able to purchase more food for the same dollar that we were using for our two vendors that we're using now. So all in all, we have spent and or encumbered more than $10 million to date. We will continue to work on that. One of the, and if Neto wants to add anything, certainly feel free. But we are currently in the process of creating a budget for January to June We know this problem, particularly food assistance issues, are not going away, at least in the next 6 months, probably longer. And we'll need continued funding to do that. So we are currently in the process of putting together a budget for the January to June, which we will submit up the chain and anticipate continuing the programs that we are doing now, and some other innovative things that we're looking at being able to fund for the first 6 months of the calendar year, last 6 months of the fiscal year. So just stay tuned for that. But the $10 million that we received and our work with the Community Foundation to continue to raise more money will absolutely get us through the end of December, and then we'll pick up with the next tranche of money starting in January.
Okay. Netta, did you have anything additional information?
I think Mark covered most of it. Absolutely. The only thing I would add is just that, we continue to see this really high demand, and even with our food access call center, to date, we've had over 1,300 people who have been referred and serviced over 3,000 clients. And so it's a steady need, and it is something we'll definitely need your support with for January to June timeframe.
Thank you. Councilman, did you have anything else, Earl? Yeah.
Yeah, just one comment. So as Mr. Madalena alluded to, the costs associated with food are also, because we're getting this monthly FEMA public assistance approval, those will also be I believe, submitted as part of the third tranche that Mr. Madalena described that will go in tentatively on the 23rd of November. And so we're hopeful that, of the $10 million that we've spent, many million of that, 75% of the total for our bulk food purchases, for example, will likely be eligible for public assistance, and therefore we may be able to grow the pot of available food resources through the end of the year and allow us to move some things around to give us some of that budget flexibility into the new year that we're hoping to have. So more to come on that, but I wanted to make sure that we were clarifying that some of the food will go in as part of that third tranche of submission.
Okay, thank you. And Earl, was that all the presentations? Was there any other presentations?
Mr. President,
Okay.
I've somehow gotten back via a cell phone, so my apologies for if the sound or video quality are different. I just wanted to let you know, and I think I heard while I quickly switched monitors to listen to you on television while I was trying to fix everything. Dr. Stoddard mentioned that Josh Waters and Dave Gottesman from OMB are here also to answer any specific questions about our regular submissions. So, and as we go forward, hopefully we will have more charts and graphs to share with you earlier in the presentation process.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we're going to continue our 5-minute rule, but Councilmember Friedson, you were the first council member.
Thank you, Council President. Thanks for the presentation. First question, the Council President sent a letter yesterday to the executive branch. I just wanted to find out if there was a timeline expected for a written response to those questions. I know some of them were noted here, but not all. So I just wanted to check on the timing of that.
I have yet to see that letter, Councilmember Friedson.
Okay, I believe it was sent over, but I will yield to the Council President's office on that.
It was sent. Now I can't tell you at what time it was sent, but it was sent yesterday.
Okay, well, I think we should follow up online because I think that highlights some of the communications challenges between the executive branch and the council that we need to work through, because that's not a good sign. When in the charts and in discussion today, when you say encumbered versus spent, can you just explain so everybody understands who's watching what the difference is and what specifically something counts as encumbered from the executive branch's perspective?
Sure. So from the county regulation perspective, we can't pay an invoice that hasn't had money encumbered into an account. And so, for example, if I talk about Martini Foods, and we've encumbered a total of $3 million actually to Martini Foods and $2 million to Food Pro. For both of those, we've had to encumber that money, so we then had some place to pay the invoices out of. And so they invoice us every week after they make their deliveries. And so at this point, we are spending just over $200,000 a week on shelf-stable food, and that comes out of those accounts those purchase orders that have been created. And so
just to be clear, it's not being considered. It's not just for food security; it's for everything. It's being considered encumbered when the money is moved into the appropriate department's account, or it's being encumbered when the program is initiated and the funding takes place and it's invoiced, but before the invoice is paid.
Right. So if we know we are going to pay that we need $3 million for shelf-stable food, I had finance create a purchase order for Martini Foods. So when we are invoiced, we can pay out of that purchase order. And so
So it means the purchase order has been. I'm just trying to find out specifically in the process.
Order has been created. Yes.
Purchase order has been created. Thank you.
And we are weekly pulling out of that purchase order. And so we've actually spent almost all of it, and certainly will absolutely have it spent before the end of December.
Great. Administrator Madalena, when you say that the executive branch intends to provide the council with a plan to repurpose some of the funds, is there a specific date that we should expect that request in that plan?
For example, we are already working very closely with you and President Katz on money for a new business program aimed at the hospitality tourism industry, which sort of comes out of the same money that is that some of it has gone from PHAG to the reopen. So it'll be a new appropriation. So it depends on the individual appropriations. We're working very aggressively around some housing issues because of the timing of the eviction moratorium, other federal funds that have been provided, with a plan that would give a similar amount of money to be spent, would give us some flexibility between CRF dollars before the end of the calendar year and money that can be brought into the second half of the fiscal year into 2020 calendar year 21.
I appreciate that. I think the ad hoc approach is important, and I've been involved, as you noted, in some of them, but I do think there needs to be a comprehensive plan of how all of the funding is going to work and all of the funds that need to be repurposed out of certain accounts, all of the funds that we expect to be available, and how the strategy is going to change based on that. I think that, based on the prior conversation from that last week, I think that's what we really could use. And so if we could, have a specific plan of everything comprehensively of what we don't expect to spend, what needs to be repurposed. Here's the plan for the several that have already been determined, and forthcoming will be plans on X, Y, and Z to address this or that issue. I think it would be helpful and instructive for everybody. Okay, so based on the chart that you sent on Friday, which I really appreciate, and I do review that every week, the hospital COVID response aid for $10 million, which was part of our initial relief package, and the first $2 million emergency eviction prevention and rental assistance, they are not designated as currently for potential CARES Act reimbursement. I just wanted to get an explanation for why and how that determination was made.
Hi, this is Josh Waters from OMB. I can provide that information. So for the $10 million hospital COVID response appropriation, that money we believe is eligible for FEMA reimbursement. And so we would try for reimbursement from FEMA, and we have authority under Resolution 19498 to pay for the local match for that particular appropriation. So that doesn't necessarily need to be allocated to the CRF. As far as the initial appropriation for the rental assistance and eviction prevention dollars, those were initially provided by council as general fund reserves. The decision was made at the time in consultation with council staff and executive staff as to whether those would be CRF eligible. In working with the county attorney's office, those are going to be CRF eligible. So when we will be sending over, the executive branch will be sending over a resolution to amend the funding source for that particular resolution to allow for the use of CRF funds.
Okay, and then the chart would need to be updated as well. Okay, that is helpful. I was going to ask, but the 25% of the local piece, if you don't designate the $10 million hospital funding, would that be able to be paid out of CARES Act funding, or would that come out of general fund reserves?
The match would come out of CARES Act funding because when council provided the $80 million for the CRF NDA, one of the allowed uses of that funds was to pay for the local share of the FEMA match. So we can use those funds that have already been appropriated to pay for that match.
Okay, I think the chart should reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate the recommendation to revisit this issue and the weekly updates, which I think is an excellent recommendation. Ms. Barnes, I just wanted to go back and let me first express my appreciation. I know there was great interaction and connection between the council and the executive branch as we stood up the program, and you took many of the recommendations that my colleagues and I made to heart, and I think we got off to a really good start. You mentioned one of the challenges being not HHS, but the partner organizations. Can you elaborate on that and let us know what you meant by that?
Yes. In terms of challenges, I think they experience some of the same challenges that we do at HHS when we do eligibility work, and that is helping the families collect the documentation. We did put a lot of emphasis in this EARP program to minimize the amount of documents that are required to authorize the benefit. We needed to confirm that they actually were Montgomery County residents. We need to confirm, because the benefit increases based on family size, we needed to confirm each of the children that they listed on the benefit. And so we look for ways to help that process. The first document, for example, would have been the birth certificate. But if a family couldn't find the birth certificate, or if it was from another country and they didn't have a copy of it, we would accept evidence of the child from a doctor's office, a doctor's appointment, or from any type of MCPS record that indicated that the child was part of the household. So documentation has been a challenge, but again, I think we've worked together to try and find solutions to that. I think the other, I think just the readiness of families to have that documentation is one of the challenges that, again, we've worked together. Early in the process, we met with the processing partners weekly, just to make sure we were aware of what their challenges were and try and find creative ways to overcome them.
I appreciate that. And, you know, obviously as the need has grown, even since the beginning of the pandemic, there are even more data points with so many, we discussed this in a previous session, but now with so many county residents having filed for unemployment, receiving some level of benefits, but we know there are many county residents who are not filing for unemployment for a variety of reasons. And so I think that's another data point moving forward for those families that initially we were targeting those families that weren't able to access those federal stimulus checks. Now, with families not being able to access other services, I know those remain on our radar screen, but I appreciate all the efforts to date, and obviously we'll be keeping close tabs on this. So thank you for those responses.
Thank you. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I want to thank all of you for being here today, giving us this very detailed update. I think it's obvious that this is what we should have done from the get-go, because we understand that this is a very complicated process, and I know I really enjoyed, working with all of you when we were developing the special appropriations. This is not something the council did on its own. This is something that we did collaboratively, and so it is very important that we also work collaboratively as we're trying to figure out how to best get these dollars to our needy residents. Going back to the rental assistance program, I was just wondering if there could be a little bit more explanation as to what is the plan. I mean, obviously, there's still quite a bit of money. I think it's $1.6 million have been spent out of the $20 million. And this, I know it's something that I know my office gets asked almost on a daily basis. We are constantly being asked about this particular issue, and I'm sure all my colleagues are experiencing the same. So can somebody elaborate a little bit more in terms of what is the plan and basically if there are any timelines, et cetera, for this very important special appropriation for rental assistance for our residents?
Sure. Councilmember Navarro, thank you for the question. We are going to do next week's briefing. We'll focus all on the various housing programs, including the eviction prevention program. So we wanted to be able to spend a little more time looking at, for example, through the CARES Act, and remember the CRF dollars are just one part of the CARES Act. We received some direct assistance for homelessness prevention. And then you all have created the eviction prevention program. And so part of our thinking is if those prevention dollars have some flexibility and last into the next calendar year, then maybe we will come back to you to ask for more flexibility to use the eviction program funds up front on homelessness prevention, and thus allow some more flexible dollars to continue into the next calendar year, which is when several of the moratorium or restrictions start to, at least right now, time out. So we're trying to be, as I think you would want us to be, as creative in keeping in both using the dollars within the rules that we have that have been put before us, CRF dollars currently by the end of the calendar year, while at the same time making sure we have the flexibility to use that money for meeting needs in our community, which we know will extend beyond the end of the calendar year. Unfortunately, it would be wonderful if magically this would all come to an end on December 30th, but we know that's not going to be the case, as you've heard. So that's our current thinking.
Great. And so you're saying that next week we're going to get more into these particular issues of housing. Great.
That's our goal. Is that will be one of the focus programs for next week's briefing.
For next week. Okay, I'll make a note of that. Also, building on what Councilmember Friedson said, I think that any decision on changing the use of some of the unspent money, et cetera, it would be really important for us to get that information as quickly as possible. To be honest, many of us, when we were adopting these special appropriations, always commented on the record that most likely this would not be enough to address the need. So again, as we now hear that there might be some areas where the money is not going to totally be spent, it would be important to understand, exactly why, given the scope of the need out there. It just seems a little bit contradictory. So that would be, I think, super important to know. Also, really appreciate the expansion of the hubs. I mean, I know that the models are different, but I keep reiterating that given that we do have an extraordinary hub in Germantown that has found ways to really reach into the community and meet their needs wherever they are, that my expectation is that we would be replicating as much as possible that model. Obviously there would be some differences and some nuances, but the truth of the matter is that I am a strong believer that the fact that that particular hub has grown to the degree that it has grown, it's because of the particular attention to the service delivery model that very much fits our communities. And I'm talking about the entire county. So as we're standing up other hubs and we're investing money in some of them, some of them $150,000, et cetera, my expectation is that the level of service in terms of the number of families that those hubs are going to serve, it has to really correspond to, for example, what they're doing in Germantown. If not, it would be really unequal, and it tells me that there's something that we're missing. So so anyway, I really wanted to just point that out because our resources are so scarce and so precious, and I want to make sure that we're definitely having the impact that we set out to have. So just a note. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Rice.
So let me piggyback off of what Councilmember Navarro said, because I couldn't agree with her more. I mean, we are blessed to have, and part of it is great leadership, but it doesn't mean that leadership is just in Germantown. We have great leaders throughout this county. And so certainly when it comes to Grace Rivera Oven and the work that she's done, coupled with Black Rock Center for the Arts and Lynn Arndt, who's the director there, who have committed themselves to standing this up from the very beginning, this is what we want to see throughout the county. So again, I just want to echo what Councilmember Navarro said, and again, make sure that the resources as well as the support are behind them. And in some cases, you may not have a Black Rock Center for the Arts, but we as a county have to identify what those other partners may be so that these things can be successful throughout, because there are also going to be models in which Councilmember Navarro said earlier in an Education and Culture Committee meeting for some of our other things when it comes to our education equity hubs and other types of things. So this is a great opportunity for us to really expand the level of services into communities in a time in which is needed. And so we do want to look at the successes of that model and then spread those throughout the county to other deserving areas that we know need it just as much, if not more. So again, I just want to echo everything that Councilmember Navarro said. She's right on point.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedson has asked for a second few moments, so we're going to time him, but go ahead, please.
Well, I think it's an important enough discussion. I think you should take the time that we need to ask the questions that we have. So I thank you for that, Council President. Just building on some of the questions I had earlier, based on the timeline you shared in the beginning, Mr. Madaleno, that totals $120 million by my math of the total amount between now and the end of December that the administration expects to request from FEMA. Is that the maximum amount that we believe we would be eligible? Is that all of the FEMA eligible expenses?
No,
be incurred before
that's our current estimate. We feel we are well along the way with the first. The first 52 million of it, and then the second chunk we are looking at. That is our estimate, but in both cases we are that is our right now our bottom line estimate.
So the 52 is the next 3 submissions before mid-November.
Correct.
And then the rest is an estimate. So you think the 52 is a hard hard number, and the rest, the balance of that is a soft estimate.
Yes.
Yep. How much of the hard estimate is COVID differential pay? Of the 52 million that
right now we've got a 50 million plus number in there as an estimate.
So 50 million of the 52 million, or 50 million of the 120 million?
50 million of the 120 million.
Okay. Are there any FEMA reimbursements aside from the COVID differential pay that are not included in the chart that you provide to the council every week on the federal reimbursements and the CARES Act funding?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Friedson, can you ask that question again? Because I keep getting 130 million. So that's
maybe I miscounted. 50.
But I'm worried about
88.
Doing math on the fly.
Yeah, well, we'll save the math for a minute. I might have miscounted in my head, but I thought it was 120, but if it's 130, even better. But is there any FEMA reimbursements that the executive branch intends to request that are not included in the chart that we get every week for CARES Act funding? Presumably most of the, if not all of the FEMA reimbursements, besides differential pay, are the special appropriations that have been done as part of this emergency relief effort. Are there items that are not included on the chart?
Within the special appropriations, we've done and Earl is also on the line, so Earl can quickly correct anything. We've done, I think, an enormous amount of purchasing of personal protective equipment, cleaning supplies, those sorts of things that we would normally, we normally purchase all of these goods, right? It's the quantities that we've had to greatly expand. So I think those are not contained in specific special appropriations that you have passed. You have provided, a specific dollar amount appropriation for operating expenses, for example, for the Department of General Services. So this is still early in the fiscal year, so we've been going through.
So I think it would be helpful. I mean, the context here matters, and we don't really, we're kind of flying blind here because we don't have all the context. So if you could share with us not only the FEMA reimbursement requests as they come, but what you're expecting to request from FEMA. From us, it can be approximates, but as part of the submission that you're providing to us on the CARES Act funding, I mean, that context is everything in this conversation, and without it, I don't know that we have the information that we need to really ask appropriate questions or provide legitimate oversight.
What I would add to, I think, get to your point, Councilmember Friedson, is that there will be space between what FEMA will reimburse and what's currently in appropriation and CARES. And what I mean by that is, and I'll give you an example, is some of our congregate sheltering operations around like expansion of our homeless shelters into our rec centers. A portion of that will likely be FEMA reimbursable, and that would be covered in the third tranche, which is our operating costs for other departments besides general services. That would be an HHS cost, for example. And some of it will be covered in the personnel, which are really the fourth tranche of the FEMA reimbursement requests. But some of it will just be viewed by FEMA as expanded operations of county government, and that will not be eligible for FEMA reimbursement, nor does it have a specific CARES Act designation other than potentially falling underneath the NDA that covered a broader swath of general operations of county government. So
as much of that information as you're able to provide us, I think it would be very helpful, because if we wait until the end when you've already submitted all of the FEMA reimbursements and we have the answer, we're not in a position to make any appropriation decisions that utilize this context, which is essential. So I think that would be appreciated. Last one, I just want to make sure I have the numbers. Sorry, go ahead.
One more note that I think is really important. You'll see this in the chart. There is no cost that goes beyond October, for example. Clearly, we are still going to be accruing costs in November and December and beyond that will be still FEMA eligible, assuming that the state of emergency by the federal government has not been rescinded by that point. And so there will be continuing costs that FEMA does not have this December 30th deadline.
Right.
So that will,
you just can't use the CARES Act for the 25% if you submit it after December 31st.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure the numbers I have are right, because you questioned my math. I want to make sure I didn't hear wrong. 18.2 million this Friday is the submission. 13.8 million in early November. 20 million in mid-November. 18 million end of November, and then 50 million by the end of December. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Check the math, but I'm pretty sure that equals 120. Okay, last question, I promise. Last week, the main part of the FEMA reimbursement conversation was centered around two things. Number one, that it takes 6 weeks to get a response. And number two, that whatever FEMA can not reimburse you for, the past experience suggests that they won't. And that things changed on September 15th when they changed their guidelines, which would make it much harder to be reimbursed for anything, notwithstanding the incredibly positive news that I still would like to get some documentation on from FEMA based in mid-July of what they would and wouldn't reimburse. But today you mentioned earlier in the conversation that DC received a response in 2 weeks, and they're being reimbursed for nearly all of the requests and are appealing what wasn't reimbursed. Did something change within the last week of what the expectations are from FEMA, or am I just misunderstanding something?
So DC is treated like a state, so they get a faster answer than we'll get. as a county government. As a matter of fact, the state of Maryland has similarly gotten a faster response. For context, the District of Columbia has submitted approximately $143 million in requests. They've received a positive affirmation on $107 million, and therefore have received 75% of that 107, or will receive 75% when they receive the money. So something like $79 million in total. So that gives you some percentage breakdowns of what they submitted versus what they got. The state of Maryland is substantially lower. They've got, I think, submitted about 73 million, have been approved for approximately 50 million, and therefore received 75% of that $50 million. That contextually is where the state and the district are. As my understanding, and I have not gotten the most recent update, is that Virginia has not submitted anything, but that may have changed since my last update, so don't quote me on that. But that gives you some context for what the state level entities are receiving in terms of their speed. And it's generally been about, in some cases, 2 weeks. I think the district director and I spoke after our last council session because it made the rounds around the region, a lot of questions you all asked. And they had been averaging they said about 3 weeks on average, have gotten it back as fast as 2 weeks, as slow as 4 weeks. So right around, that range.
Okay, that's helpful. It was used as a comparison earlier, so the context is helpful there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. At this point, I actually don't see any other questions. So we are, what might be helpful if, and in some of these questions, in some of these cases, we're talking about numbers that we hear on the call. And obviously that causes some confusion as well. But any numbers that we could get earlier than the call that you're going to be discussing would be helpful to all of us. Yep. And if there's any possibility that someone could, if there is a question about numbers or whatever, that they could send it to you earlier than the call, that would also make it a little easier for us as well. So that there's not the
only old note, I talked to Dave Gottesman about this yesterday, and they helped compile this report, which we're very appreciative of, is they get a lot of this data on the Monday preceding our Tuesday calls. So if we're going to provide in advance, it would probably be we would not be able to meet the normal packet time of 4 or 5 days before. We could probably certainly provide it the day before if that would be.
Well, it would certainly be more helpful than exactly this way. This is helpful. Don't get me wrong here, but I think that would make it even a little bit more efficient and helpful as well. So thank you all very, very much. We appreciate your time. We know we'll be seeing you next week with some additional information. And we are going to be on recess until 1:30. We start back at 1:30 for our public hearing. So thank you all very much. We are now on recess.
More production of fruits and vegetables in a small scale. We're seeing a growth in the number of farms between